Good morning. Start your day informed and ahead. Today is Wednesday, the 5th of August. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Cheska Litancada. We are bringing you the perfect mix of the headlines you need and the conversations that shape your day.
From the news desk to the digital space, we have got you covered. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and welcome to Morning Matters.
First in the news, the prosecution has stepped up its scrutiny of Vice President Sara Duterte's confidential fund spending. Former COA Auditor Roderick Wamil testified that the OVP and DepEd submitted incomplete documents and failed to fully explain some expenses. He also said confidential funds do not mean the details of how the money was spent should also remain confidential. The trial also examined DepEd's 112.5 million peso confidential fund and the OVP spending of 125 million pesos in just 11 days in 2022. Prosecutor Lorna Capunan called the alleged fund misuse a scam, but the defense objected and the remark was stricken from the record. The prosecution plans to subpoena Mary Grace Piatos, one of the names listed as a reported recipient of confidential funds.
Ang tawag ko lang doon, hindi prima facie evidence. Kung akong tatanungin, scam ito.
Move to strike,
No
Your
further
Honor. Move to
questions.
strike. That is out of order, Your Honor.
No further questions, Your Honor.
So stricken,
Move to strike.
So stricken from the record.
All right, so the last 2 days of the trial of VP Sara Duterte's article of impeachment were quite heavy, no? Aside from the puns of Prosecutor Counsel Lorna Capunan. But of course, we've seen a lot of highlights there, or takeaways, one of which is the circular, no? The joint circular that presented by the defense, COA,
From
no?
1992.
From 1992. And he reiterated there na it is impossible, diba, to obtain official receipts, invoices during an intelligence operation. And of course, we all know, we all watch that Lorna Capunan, diba, sabi niya, no, it supersedes everything because ito na yung latest.
Yeah.
And in fact, when we were talking to Attorney Domingo Cayosa yesterday on Storycon, I asked that already. So ano ba talaga yung tama when it comes to legal standpoint? Because he's also a lawyer. And he said, kahit pa may mga nauna na, sometimes talaga, or most of the time, ang mas sinusundan yung current. Because mga nabago na, well,
Yeah.
di ba? It takes-
Common sense
Yeah,
eh.
exactly, di ba? It's not a rocket science. So, yun yung isa sa mga pinagtalunan yesterday. And also, yung usapin nung kay VP Binay. No? Because, di ba, we all know naman, the last few days, sinabi nila that's only VP Sara who had confidential
Yes.
funds and there was no record. And then here you are, the defense presented nga the SARO of the Office of the Vice President during 2014, during Vice President Binay. And ang SARO is special allotment siya release, di ba, order. Meaning, it's not really a fund itself. It's just an order that you have a budget for this. Pero, kaya nga sabi nila, there are reports emerging right now na I think binalik ng office ni VP Binay yung fund na yun because hindi naman ata nagastos. Kaya during
so that's why Attorney Wamil was asking kung na-liquidate
Yes,
ba
was it
siya?
liquidated
Okay.
properly?
Okay.
Yun ang tanong niya. So, parang we have to verify that. Pero yun nga, hindi naman talaga siya yung mismong fund kasi
Yeah.
it's an order.
Okay. And then another interesting point brought up yesterday by Attorney Wamil was that they met with Attorney
yeah.
Poa.
That's right, that's right.
And
That's right,
Zulaika
that's right.
Lopez. This was in September 2023. Kasama si Nilda Paras, the head of the COA unit auditing the funds, and State Auditor Gloria Camora. And then this was when they were talking about the AOMs. And then nag-request daw kung pwedeng audit
Audit query.
query instead of the AOM. But the COA, ended up issuing the AOM still.
But I love how Attorney Lorna Capunan still injected some humor into
Oh
the
my
proceedings
goodness.
yesterday.
Don't
Baka
answer,
kasi-
huy!
And hindi mo ba siya nakikita? Ayan, no, si Attorney Mo.
Hindi mo ba siya nakikita in person?
No, but this,
Yung sinabi pa lang yung it supersedes yung document,
Yes.
it supersedes.
exactly.
Sabay walk out.
But despite all the humor, no, and the light moments during the hearing, one thing that really stood out for me was how she ended her direct examination.
With a bang.
With a bang, right? So she said, I don't call this prima facie evidence. Kung ako ang tatanungin, scam ito. So, alam naman natin, it was stricken off the record, right? Because the defense objected to this. But we all know that the impeachment court, the impeachment trial is not just limited to an impeachment court. We also have the court of public opinion. So, it may have been stricken off the Senate's records, but nandiyan na yan sa ating headlines articles. And it really made a statement that the prosecution summarizes what it thinks that the misuse of confidential funds of the OVP and the DepEd could amount to scam, because we're talking about public funds here, di ba? So, it's a strong statement. Tingin ko pumuntos dyan ang prosecution kahapon.
And I think yung narrative nila or the goal nga, 'di ba, to send the message to the public, parang it resonated din also sa public, because yun yung una nila huli nilang napakinggan until ngayon, 'di ba?
Yes.
Until mamaya magkakaroon ulit
Yes.
ng trial. And Congressman Terry Ridon, part of the prosecution panel, he said that the burden of proof or burden of evidence is now
With
with
the
the
defense.
defense, because the presumption exists today. Sabi niya yun yesterday. So we'll see what's going to happen, because there will be interjections from the senator judges later on. And I think Roderick Wamil will still
Yes.
take the stand,
Yes,
ano?
yes.
Okay.
And it's interesting also, di ba? Kasi usually we think it's presumption of regularity, but here, when we talk about liquidating confidential funds,
Oo.
ang presumption pala is if
Yes.
merong irregularities, there's a
Use
presumption
them
for
for
personal use or
Oo,
benefit.
yun yung tinatanong ko kay Attorney JV Bautista yesterday, di ba? Yung sa COA provision, that's a special provision, 8.1, stating nga na kailangan mo i-liquidate if you fail, if an official, accountable official fails to liquidate, kailangan mong patunayan na hindi ka gumawa ng masama.
But that's also why the joint circular is so important, because that's where he based all of his findings.
Yes.
Then, kung na-violate, kung walang supporting documentary evidence, walang list for the DepEd, walang list ng schools or teachers or yung sa counterinsurgency,
oo.
marami daw na hindi tugma doon sa requirements ng joint circular for confidential funds.
And the circular, the joint circular is clear, no? It is to prevent a disallowance of irregular, unnecessary, excessive, extravagant, and unconscionable expenditures. Or in Tagalog, tetest ko yung Tagalog translation, no? As Attorney Kapunan taught us yesterday. So, irregular is
Bongga ka dahil.
Hindi pangkaraniwan.
Unnecessary,
Hindi kailangan.
Excessive,
Yun yung extravagance, ba yun? Labis-labis.
Extravagant.
Bongga kaday.
Bongga kaday. Ayan.
At saka it is also important to note that there's no accomplishment report from the side of the VP, which is very important. And even daw yung sending ng mga reports sa Senate President, sa Congress, and the President, kasama pala sa guidelines yan, which is hindi tumalima ang Office of the Vice President.
All right, well, we will continue to unpack that later in the program. But in other news, authorities have denied reports that Senator Bato de la Rosa has been arrested. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla said the Philippine National Police has no information indicating that De La Rosa is in custody. National Bureau of Investigation Director Melvin Matibag also confirmed that efforts to locate the senator remain ongoing. Meanwhile, former presidential spokesperson Attorney Harry Roque claimed in a Facebook post that someone may have betrayed De La Rosa. The senator is the subject of an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court, which has named him as a co-conspirator in the Crimes Against Humanity case against former President Rodrigo Duterte. But you know, as they say, diba, where there is smoke, there is fire. So, ang dami kong questions, diba? Where did these rumors start? Where did these reports start? Where is Senator Bato de la Rosa? Or are authorities just keeping the details of their arrest confidential for now? Or fake news ba to? Is this just an effort to destabilize? We don't know. But as far as the NBI is concerned, they clarified that wala. Wala sa kanila si Senator Bato de la Rosa, but their efforts to locate him are still ongoing.
Well, the last time we saw Senator Bato de la Rosa was at the Senate when he left with Senator Robin Padilla. This was May 14. And then even his lawyer, his lead counsel, Attorney Torion, already said he also has no information on the supposed arrest and that he hasn't even spoken to his client since May 14. So,
You believe it?
That's the question, diba? But DILG, PNP, AFP, lahat ng agencies, we don't know. We haven't. we haven't gotten any confirmation.
Pag yan, okay, so, natawa ko dito kay Bal. Anyway, for those who just tuned in, we are talking about Senator Bato de la Rosa, who has an outstanding arrest warrant from the ICC because of his case in the International Criminal Court pertaining to his alleged co-perpetrator no, in the crimes against humanity case of former President Rodrigo Duterte. And we all know naman na if walang mga mangyayaring balakid, kung talagang nahuli siya, he will be directly flown to The Hague, diba? Kasi if you can remember before, when it was former President Rodrigo Duterte, the lawyers were trying to hold off his arrest. They were trying to go to Supreme Court, etc. Pero nga, it didn't succeed. And we also have to remember that there's a petition filed from the camp of Senator Bato de la Rosa, and the Supreme Court has yet to decide on that.
So they filed 2 months ago an urgent manifestation for a temporary restraining order on this standing arrest warrant from the ICC. But what the Supreme Court ruled back then was just they ordered the respondents, the DOJ and other agencies to submit their comments on the manifestation, but they didn't rule on the TRO. So
Which is
that
just
in
a
itself
standard lang yun.
is a statement already na baka walang nakikitang enough requirements yung Supreme Court to issue this TRO.
And I think even our news department went to the airport in Cebu kasi they were circulating reports na
Yes.
check nyo yung flight radar, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah, ganyan-ganyan.
The private,
but
wala naman yata. All right, moving on to weather. Tropical storm Maymay has intensified while off the coast of La Union. Its center was last spotted 170 kilometers west-northwest of Bacnotan, La Union, with maximum sustained winds of 65 kilometers per hour. It is moving southeastward slowly. Maymay is expected to move eastward and may make landfall over Ilocos Sur or La Union this afternoon or evening before crossing northern and central Luzon. Signal number 2 is raised over parts of Ilocos Sur, La Union, Pangasinan, Abra, Mountain Province, and Benguet. Signal number 1 is up over the rest of the Ilocos region and Cordillera, as well as parts of Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, and Aurora. So La Union is taking a beating here, because just a couple of days ago, the LPA that used to be Tropical Depression Luis also enhanced the habagat. And it already caused evacuations in La Union. Classes were suspended. Work and government offices also suspended. May orange rainfall warning. Nawala ng power, 34 barangays. And now we have Maymay coming in. That's also going to be affecting La Union
part.
and
Northern part.
the northern area also. So yung heavy to intense rains, La Union, Pangasinan, Benguet, Zambales, and right now we're seeing right outside the
Heavy
studio,
downpour.
it's a heavy downpour here in Metro Manila. Moderate to heavy, Metro Manila, Ilocos Sur, Mountain Province, Ifugao, Nueva Ecija, Tarlac, Bataan, Pampanga, Bulacan, Cavite, Batangas, Occidental Mindoro. And if things are not bad enough, there is Typhoon Dolphin that is approaching. Pero Pag-asa is saying naman they're not sure yet if it's going to make landfall, if it's going to enter the Philippine area of responsibility, or if it does, it won't, it will be
Affect.
far from land naman. Pero maapektuhan pa rin yung habagat.
yes. And I remember last year or 2 years ago, 'di ba, nagkaroon din ng something to this effect, yung Fujiwara. Pero hindi naman siya nag-abot, 'di ba? Pero yun yung parang tinitignan nila na kapag dalawang bagyo ang mag-abot sa isang lugar, may dancing of the pero wala naman yun, hindi naman yung mangyayari sa atin. But please do stay tuned here on One News because there are announcements of class suspensions diba, in different areas, mostly in the province, in Zambales, Pangasinan, etc. And also other weather bulletin. No?
Yes.
Sabi daw ng Pag-asa, kaya daw bumabagyo kasi kumanta daw si Angela.
Oo.
Talaga.
Gabi pa kasi yan eh. Or everyday pagpasok sa studio, bumibirit.
Wala akong masabi. Yes na lang.
Baka gusto mong
You guys will be the
magpasample.
judge. Oh.
Okay, so in 3, 2, 1.
No. No, binabayaran po ako to sing.
Okay.
Wow.
Pero hindi ha,
Alright,
kidding
yan.
aside, mag-ingat po tayo
Yes,
sa
please
bagyo.
stay safe. Alam na po natin yung mga posibleng mangyari, landslides, power outages. pag-stock up natin ng food, ready-to-eat food, or kahit yung mga power banks natin,
Yes.
the usual.
And this is the season again to remind us about flood control projects.
All right, don't go away. Morning Matters will be back after a short break.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Day 13 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial gets underway today, with senator judges set to continue questioning former COA State Auditor Roderick Wamil. And for a preview of today's proceedings, we have our mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Amy, what can we expect today?
Yes, Pauline, we are entering the 13th day of the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. At gaya nga nung nasabi mo, no, we are expecting that there will be interjections from the senator judges for the trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Also, still concerning the confidential funds of the Vice President. At kahapon nga, kung babalikan lang din natin yung nangyari, no, there was a series of events din, no, when it comes to the direct examination, the cross-examination, and even the redirect examination of the prosecution pagdating doon sa confidential funds si Vice President Sara Duterte, dahil doon nga din sa naging presentation ng prosecution pagdating dito kay Roderick Wamil, nakikita daw kasi no na may discrepancies at may irregularities doon sa paggamit nga ni VP Sara ng kanyang confidential funds. Nakita rito na merong may lack of documentary evidence. Masasabi rin no na yung ilan sa mga confidential funds na nakapaloob dun sa resibo ay used outside the disbursement period, at yun yung nababanggit no na irregularities when it comes to the usage of the confidential funds of the Vice President. So ngayon inaasahan nga natin, Pauline, no, na magkakaroon ng questions itong senator judges pagdating pa rin sa auditing process na ginawa ni Roderick Wamil noong siya pa yung state auditor ng Commission on Audit pagdating dito sa confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte sa Office of the Vice President and sa Department of Education. Pauline?
Amy, yesterday, Attorney Lorna Kapunan ended her direct examination with a very strong statement. Sinabi niya, hindi ito prima facie evidence. Kung siya ay tatanungin, ito ay scam. And after, even though it was stricken off the record, Attorney Kapunan actually got to explain to reporters during the lunch break what she actually meant by that. Can you tell us what she said?
Yes, Pauline, if we are going to look back at what happened yesterday before the recess or before the break, no, nasabi nga ni Attorney Lorna Capuna na scam yung itong confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte, yung misuse mismo, yun yung action na tinutukoy niya, no. At noon ngang paglabas niya, sinasabi niya rin, no, na at naninindigan siya na scam nga daw dahil this is a matter of accountability. 612.5 million pesos ang hindi nagamit sa tama ng ni Vice President Sara Duterte. At sinasabi pa rin niya, no, na there has to be something din talaga na makita rito dahil nga doon pa lang sa lack of documentary evidence, it already says a lot about doon sa misuse of the confidential funds for the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education.
Alright, and Amy, kailan naman natin aasahan na ipepresenta ng prosecution ang ilang panilang mga witnesses kabilang si Mary Grace Piatos?
Well, Pauline, if we are to look at the trajectory, no, of this impeachment trial, naging mahaba yung examination na ginawa nga kay Roderick Wamil. And after the interjections of the senator judges, we are also expecting, hopefully today nga daw, no, ay maipresenta rin si Silene Del Campo, who is currently the state auditor of the Commission on Audit. So siya yung naging kasunod na sa posisyon nitong si Wamil para nga din sagutin yung auditing process ng confidential funds si Vice President Sara Duterte. After that, we are still seeing hopefully yung si Marivic Pareha para nga sa legislative end naman, no, ito yung magpapakita nga ng records doon sa nangyari ding Quadcom na hearing kasama si Vice President Sara Duterte. So yun pa lang yung dalawa that we are sure of seeing for the presentation of the prosecution. Pero as for the part of presenting Mary Grace Piatos, wala pang final stand dyan ang prosecution. Nung tinanong natin kahapon sa press conference, ang nasabi nila, they are still open for the dialogue if they are to subpoena the presence of Mary Grace Piatos. Pero ito nga daw yung magiging crucial din kasi ang lagi nilang sinasabi, no, Pauline, the existence or the non-existence of Mary Grace Piatos will testify kung meron nga bang paggamit sa confidential funds or totoo nga bang may tumanggap doon sa confidential funds na ginamit nga sa Office of the Vice President and sa Department of Education. Pauline?
All right, thank you very much for those updates. I was a mobile journalist, Amy Atienza, reporting. And now in other news, Attorney Israelito Torion, legal counsel for Senator Bato de la Rosa, said he has no information confirming reports that the senator has been arrested. In an interview with 1PHS sa Totoo Lang, Torion said he last spoke with De La Rosa in mid-May, shortly before the senator left the Senate. He also suggested the arrest rumors may have been part of a programmed activity orchestrated by someone attempting to determine the senator's location. Meanwhile, National Bureau of Investigation Director Melvin Matibag told One News's Political Beat that the agency has not arrested De La Rosa. He added that the NBI continues its efforts to locate the senator.
At baka nagkaroon lang talaga siguro na merong palabas ng information at kinagat at alam mo naman ngayon ang daming mga trolls at sasakyan. It may be a program activity masterminded by someone who wants to know his location also.
Well, as far as NBI is concerned, wala po. Hindi po namin siya nahuli. Nagulat na rin lang po kanina nung bumalik ako sa opisina, nandoon yung mga reporters and asking. Pero we're checking. Pero sa amin po, again, wala sa amin, but there's a continuing effort to locate him. And there's a ongoing surveillance po regularly. Ang sa amin po as the law enforcement, ang amin pong mandate is to arrest and turn over them to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice will be the one to decide on the next thing na gagawin po.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines has confirmed its first direct observation of Chinese naval drills near Bajo de Masinloc. Mobile journalist Jazz Paredes has this report.
For the first time, the Armed Forces of the Philippines has confirmed that it has directly observed and monitored the People's Liberation Army Navy about 124 nautical miles east of Bajo de Masinloc. This was monitored after the conduct of the 17th Multilateral Maritime Cooperative Activity between the Philippines, Japan, and the United States, which also coincided with the PLA's 99th anniversary last August 1.
After numerous fake messages of drills being conducted by the PLA Navy, this is the first time that we have observed and monitored them conducting.
However, it is still a question whether the Chinese military could maintain the presence of its warships, replenishment ships, hovercraft, and fighter aircraft in Scarborough Shoal.
The AFP was able to monitor last 31 July and 01 August the conduct of drills by the PLA Navy consisting of 5 warships, 1 replenishment ship, 2 hovercrafts, 2 helicopters, and an identified number of fighter aircraft. As to whether this is a sustainable activity is questionable.
However, the AFP said that the Philippines remains firm in asserting its maritime rights and continues to carry out its missions in the West Philippine Sea despite monitoring China's latest military activity. Trinidad also expressed support for Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro, emphasizing that defending the country's position in the West Philippine Sea is both a constitutional duty and an obligation to the Republic.
It is not only for the arbitral award, but first and foremost, the AFP stands solidly behind and aligns with the statement of our SND that all Filipinos, all government officials, elected or appointed, should fight for the interest of the country, not only domestically but even in the maritime domain covering the West Philippine Sea.
Meanwhile, the AFP has also called on all Filipinos to set aside differences and stand united in defending the country's rights in the West Philippine Sea. This is following Davao City Representative Paulo Pulong Duterte's remarks accusing Defense Secretary Chodoro of demonizing China. AFP spokesperson Colonel Francel Margaret Padilla, while clarifying that her statement is not directed toward an individual, said that issues concerning the West Philippine Sea should be a unifying factor that transcends politics.
So, lahat tayo bilang mamamayang Pilipino, iisa dapat ang puso natin pag-usapin ng West Philippine Sea. The West Philippine Sea issue is actually a unifying factor. No? It should be a unifying factor for all Filipinos. Pagkausapin ng West Philippine Sea, wala itong kulay, wala itong politika, wala itong religion, wala itong kung ano ang lengguwahe mo or dialect mo.
Kapatid Jazz Paredes, we are One News.
Don't go away because Money Talks with Kathy Yang is up next to get you ahead of the markets. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Stay tuned to One News.
Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, Philippine inflation for July out any moment now at the Philippine Statistics Authority. Our Business World median is for July inflation to have come in at 6.4%, same as in June, but a lot faster than the same month last year. Most analysts surveyed split on the inflation reading for July, with 10 anticipating a softer headline figure and 9 expecting a faster one. We'll listen in to the announcement of the official results soon as we see National Statistician Undersecretary Claire Dennis Mapa speaking. And we'll also check in right after on Marco Antonio Agonia, the economist at the University of Asia and the Pacific. He has the hottest inflation forecast in the Business World Survey at 6.9%. Let's take a look at that live shot from the Philippine Statistics Authority in Quezon City, where Yusek Mapa is announcing the June inflation results. Let's listen in.
Ating pakinggan ang report ni Yusek Dennis Mapa.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Ang Philippine Statistics Authority mag-uulat ng antas ng inflation sa bansa para sa buwan ng Hulyo 2026. Ang headline inflation rate o ang pagtaas ng presyo ng mga produkto at serbisyo sa bansa ay bumagal sa antas na 6.2% nitong Hulyo 2026. Noong Hunyo 2026, ang inflation rate ay naitala sa antas na 6.4% at 0.9% naman noong Hulyo 2025. Ang average inflation rate mula Enero hanggang Hulyo 2026 ay nasa antas na 5.0%. Ang pangunahing dahilan ng mas mababang antas ng inflation nitong Hulyo 2026 kumpara noong Hunyo ay ang mas mabagal na pagtaas ng presyo ng transport na may 11.9% inflation rate. Ito ay may 57.4% share sa pagbaba ng pangkalatang inflation sa bansa. Ang nag-ambag sa mas mababang antas ng inflation ng transport ay ang mas mabagal na pagtaas ng presyo ng mga sumusunod. Gasolina na may 34.1% inflation rate at other passenger transport by road na may 5.3% inflation rate gaya ng pamasahe sa tricycle. Ang pangalawang dahilan ng mas mababang antas ng inflation nitong Hulyo 2026 ay ang mas mabagal na pagtaas ng presyo ng education services na may 1.9% inflation rate. Ito ay may 29% share sa pagbaba ng pangkalatang inflation sa bansa. Ang nag-ambag sa mas mababang antas ng inflation para sa education services nitong Hulyo ay ang mas mabagal na pagtaas ng presyo ng mga sumusunod. Tertiary education na may 1.8% inflation rate, primary education na may 1.8% inflation rate, at secondary education na may 1.6% inflation rate. Ang pangatlong dahilan ng mas mababang antas ng inflation nitong Hulyo ay ang mas mabagal na pagtaas ng presyo ng restaurants and accommodation services na may 6.8% inflation rate. Ito ay may 13.6% share sa pagbaba ng pangkalatang inflation sa bansa. Ang nag-ambag sa mas mababang antas ng inflation para sa restaurants and accommodation services itong Hulyo ay ang mas mabagal na pagtaas ng presyo ng restaurants, cafe and the like na may 6.9% inflation rate. Ang pangunahing nag-ambag sa overall inflation itong Hulyo ay ang food and non-alcoholic beverages. Ang commodity group na ito ay nagtala ng 5.2% inflation rate at 32.1% share sa pangkalatang inflation sa bansa. Ang tatlong pangunahing nag-ambag sa inflation para sa food and non-alcoholic beverages ay ang mga sumusunod. Cereals and cereal products na may 13.5% inflation rate, particular dito ang bigas. Fish and other seafood na may 7.8% inflation rate gaya ng dilis, at vegetables, tubers, cooking bananas at iba pa na may 8.4% inflation rate, particular dito ang kamatis. Ang pangalawang commodity group na may pinakamalaking kontribusyon sa pangkalatang inflation nitong Hulyo ay ang housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels na may 8.2% inflation rate at 26.8% share sa pangkalatang inflation sa bansa. Ang tatlong pangunahing nag-ambag sa inflation para sa housing, water, electricity, gas, and other fuels ay ang mga sumusunod. Kuryente na may 17.0% inflation rate. Renta sa bahay na may 3.4% inflation rate at LPG na may 26% inflation rate. Ang transport ang pangatlo sa may pinakamalaking ambag sa pangkalatang inflation itong Hulyo 2026. Ang commodity group na ito ay nagtala ng 11.9% inflation rate at 17.4% share sa pangkalatang inflation sa bansa. Ang mga pangunahing nag-ambag sa inflation para sa transport ay ang mga sumusunod. Gasolina na may 34.1% inflation rate. Diesel na may 38.6% inflation rate. At other passenger transport by road na may 5.3% inflation rate, particular dito ang pamasahe sa tricycle. Ang limang pangunahing commodities na nag-ambag sa overall inflation itong Hulyo 2026 ay ang mga sumusunod. Bigas na may 17.1% inflation rate at 1.2 percentage point share. Kuryente na may 17% inflation rate at 0.7 percentage point share.
Mapa there announcing the July inflation results. Philippine inflation for July has come in at 6.2%. That is slower than June's 6.4%, slower than the Business World's median forecast of 6.4%. But the fifth-month headline inflation breached the Bangko Central's 4% ceiling. Most analysts Business World surveyed were split on the inflation reading for July, with 10 anticipating a softer headline figure and 9 expecting a faster one. Our next guest is one of the 9. In fact, he has the hottest inflation forecast for July at 6.9%. Let's bring him in. Marco Antonio Agonia, economist at University of Asia and the Pacific, joining us now. It's good seeing you, Marco. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Kathy. Good morning to the viewers as well.
Yeah, so what do you make of the result? It's a lot slower than your own forecast.
Yeah, well, really, it's a good thing to be wrong in this case. In fact, it's probably one of the most favorable outcomes that we could have asked for. Definitely below consensus estimates and therefore my estimates. I think in this case, we were anticipating much sharper increases in transport and food. But in this case, it's good that we were proven wrong, I suppose.
All right, it's good to be wrong in this case, more favorable for the rest of us. But what about the second round effects, now that we know what we do, of a slower inflation result for July?
Yeah, well, the second round effects are still going through the economy. Core inflation is still above that 2 to 4% target band that the BSP is very comfortable with. So really, it's a developing story. What this shows now is that there is less pressure in general for the entire economy to raise its prices, especially when you go down to your tertiary level services sectors, where really the brunt of core inflation is where it's going to be in. So with this lower headline inflation reading, it's a bit of reprieve, but the fight's not over yet.
Yeah, fight is not over. We just got the core inflation result for July. It's come in at 4.2%. That is also a lot slower than in June, when we've seen the fastest pace in nearly 3 years. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, really, this comes because the anticipated increases that I had for my 6.9% forecast were probably not as extreme as expected. And the other part is the minimum wage increase in the NCR was temporarily restrained. So the pass-through effects from that might not be felt right now, when we thought it would actually be pushing through. So there's less pressure in general on services downstream to raise their prices and therefore raise core inflation. But again, it's still above target, and we're only beginning to move towards a slightly more favorable outcome.
True, because when you look at the BSP ceiling, that's 4%, and it's still a lot higher. And in fact, a fifth straight month that the BSP ceiling had been breached. So what are the expectations then on how you'll be recomputing so that you'll come right down closer to what August figures may be, and how your forecast will look like for the rest of the year?
Yeah, well, really, with this new inflation reading, it's good news for the Philippines, right? Definitely good news. In this case, we will probably look closer at how food prices have developed through these past months. And again, we're also looking at the potential uncertainties when it comes to things in the future. We're not sure if the government will really pick up most of its infrastructure spending, if this will be inflationary. And we're also not sure about the aggressive El Nino that is going to has been touted to happen in the next few months. We still need to see more data on that, but hopefully we can recalibrate our models by then. For the rest of the year, we're still seeing definitely above target inflation, probably within the range of 6 to 7%. As I said, the fight's not over yet, but at this level, at the very least, it might goad BSP into a less defensive stance moving forward.
All right, fight is not over yet, and I know that you've made a mention of wages temporarily suspended. What sort of scenarios do we face when that temporary suspension is over by August 13th?
Yeah, we think that this will definitely add a little bit to headline inflation, the degree of which it's up for debate. We still have to do our calculations. But what's the really scary thing about this is if the NCR wage increase does push through, the other ones in other regions in the Philippines might also follow with it. And if everyone else raises minimum wages at this point in time in the economy, we're worried that it might add a little more inflation pressure moving forward, especially when we get into Q4 when jobs hiring does tend to pick up a bit.
Yeah, in fact, the central bank governor himself had made a mention of wage pressures. That was the key consideration coming into this inflation result. What now? What sort of expectations? You said the fight is not over yet. I would presume that the fight is in the monetary policy maneuvers that come right after, or in fact on August 27th when they next meet.
Yeah, for this, we're actually penciling in 50 basis points more of rate hikes for the BSP. So 25 basis points in August and another 25 basis points in their next meeting. We think that this is a moderately conservative level that the BSP has to just manage because they could raise rates to above the expected inflation rate for this year, but we think that would be too contractionary meanwhile, because this kind of decision is something that's done today, but has effects 24 months into the future. And we've already known that the IMF and all of these multilaterals have downgraded the growth outlook for the Philippines for this year and the next. So it's really now a balancing. And I'd say the burden is now more on the national government to try and soften these price pressures for most Filipinos. Monetary policy, in my opinion, can only do so much. Yeah.
Yeah, 50 bips was based on 6.9% of an inflation forecast. What are the chances, though, that they could wait? Because it's a lot slower than forecast, the median forecast in the Business World Survey.
Well, we don't think that they're going to wait. If anything, I was penciling in more of a chance of an emergency rate hike off cycle. But in this case, because inflation has become lower, but then again, core inflation is still above that comfortable 2 to 4% target. I think it's going to let BSP just continue on its normal path. And by August, I think its normal path will be to hike by 25 basis points.
All right, what are your forecasts for GDP as that's out on Friday and pretty much giving us a picture of how growth is growing as inflation stays elevated?
Well, that's the harsh part. We think that Q2 GDP growth did slow down to 2.5%. That's our estimate. The fact of the matter is most of the Middle East crisis occurred during that second quarter. Historically, the second quarter is not really where we see a lot of growth to begin with. So we think that Q2 GDP did slow down. But again, we're hoping that we'll be surprised. We'll be wrong in a more favorable way. Yeah.
All right. Well, what about jobs? Because that data is out tomorrow, Thursday. What are we going to get? And how much of a concern might it be that underemployment gets to be the more toxic figure than unemployment?
Well, it's definitely a salient risk that has appeared throughout this year so far. The employment figures themselves are already quite tepid. Employment in general, in levels, has been below 50 million for most of this year already. The underemployment rate, meanwhile, is what we're truly concerned with because it reflects the structural fragilities of the Philippine economy. And moving forward, unless we see really clear drivers of growth that can facilitate the creation of higher value jobs, more valuable, more productive kinds of hiring activity, then we can probably say that underemployment is going to continue plaguing the labor market for the rest of the year as well.
The peso open is a lot easier to remember at 60.999. We're coming all the way from 61.165. What do you make of the initial reaction in the peso?
Well, it's definitely more constructive. The traders are really working on more constructive news right now. Inflation is softer than expected, so of course the peso is going to strengthen based on what we know. But I think moving forward, the more interesting thing would be to look at what the Fed is doing, because there is a lot of volatility happening as regards the Fed decision. Right now, I'm looking at the CME Fed Watch figures. The decision is actually, the market consensus is pretty split. And historically, in the run-up to another Fed meeting, the peso tends to see a lot of volatility moving forward. So assuming that inflation will be contained within the 6 to 7% target band without many surprises, then we think the outlook for the peso dollar rate might go towards 62 towards the end of the year, or about 61 to 62. Yeah.
All right. As a final point, as we have a slowing inflation, how is it going to feel like, you think, for consumers in restaurants and in gas stations? Will it make a difference?
Yeah, well, it will make a difference, but not immediately, definitely not right now. When we say that inflation is slowing down, it still means that inflation is positive. Things are still getting more expensive. And for the average Filipino, that is really what's quite demoralizing to existence, especially with limited household budgets. For the average Filipino, you might see that your food bill, your grocery bills might be more expensive at a slower pace. For Gen Z, maybe you'll see your bouldering and your pickleball fees being maybe a little more expensive, but not as much as in previous months. So there's a slowdown here, but again, the fight is not over and prices are still rising at a fairly uncomfortable rate for most Filipino households. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those Gen Zs will hold on to their pickleball expense. Thank you so much for joining us. Marco Antonio Agonia of the UANP. The Bureau of Internal Revenue has expanded its list of VAT-exempt medicines as part of the government's effort to make healthcare more accessible and affordable. The agency published an updated list of VAT-exempt medicines endorsed by the Food and Drug Administration under the Train and Create laws. The move also supports President Marcos's call in his State of the Nation address to expand access to quality and affordable healthcare. With the latest update, the number of VAT-exempt medicines has grown to 2,277, including 14 newly added drugs. The list covers medicines for cancer, hypertension, diabetes, mental illness, high cholesterol, kidney disease, and tuberculosis. The BIR said the expanded coverage is expected to help reduce out-of-pocket medical expenses, especially for Filipinos undergoing long-term treatment for chronic and life-threatening illnesses. The World Bank says the Philippines can raise more tax revenue by broadening its tax base as the government moves to expand excise taxes to help fund its proposed tax relief package. World Bank senior country economist Jafar Al-Rikabi said broader excise taxes could help the government collect more revenue without placing a heavier burden on low and middle income Filipinos. This comes as the Finance Department proposes new or higher taxes on sweetened beverages, e-cigarettes, plastic products, luxury vehicles, and private aircraft. The multilateral lender also said the country should improve tax collection by making compliance easier, reviewing ineffective tax exemptions, and using additional revenue support infrastructure, education, health, and social protection programs. It added any tax reform should remain fair, growth-oriented, and avoid undue burdens on the economy. Net foreign portfolio investment inflows into the Philippines extended to a second straight month in June as investors continued to buy local financial assets despite global market uncertainty. Data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas showed net hot money inflows reached $170 million in June. That was lower than May's $232 million, but far higher than the $18 million recorded a year earlier. Gross inflows likewise climbed to a 4-month high of nearly $2.94 billion. Economists said the back-to-back net inflows reflect continued investor confidence in the Philippines' economic fundamentals despite heightened global volatility. They said demand was driven mainly by peso-denominated government securities, while warning that future portfolio flows will remain sensitive to global interest rates, geopolitical risks, and investor sentiments. You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, we'll get a preview of Day 13 of Vice President Sara Duterte's trial from our mobile journalist Amy Atienza, joining us from the Senate. And you can now use Apple Pay in the Philippines. Keep it here on One News. To Money Talks, I'm Kathy Yang. Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial enters its 13th day with Senator judges set to question former COA State Auditor Roderick Wamil. For a preview of today's proceedings, we have our mobile journalist Amy Atienza. So what can we expect today, Amy?
Yes, Kathy, we are entering the 13th day of the impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. At gaya nga nung nasabi mo kanina, no, we are expecting that there will be interjections from the senator judges para nga sa witness na si Roderick Wamil, who happens to be the former state auditor of the Commission on Audit, Intelligence and Confidential Funds Auditing Office. So itong si Roderick Wamil, no, Kathy, kung maririnig din natin yung nangyari doon sa impeachment trial kahapon, na isiwalat na doon sa presentasyon ng prosecution na meron ngang discrepancies at irregularities pagdating doon sa paggamit ng confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte sa Office of the Vice President at sa Department of Education. Nakikita kasi na meron ngang lack of documentary evidence, merong mga paggamit o paggasta ng confidential funds beyond the disbursement period at bukod pa dyan ay nasasabi rin no na meron nga din dito nga nababanggit na audit observation memo na ipinasa mismo ng Commission on Audit pero hindi agad na comply ng Office of the Vice President dahil ang nangyari ay audit query ang hinahanap no pero dito daw kasi sa audit query nga na nais gawin mismo ng Office of the Vice President wala daw kasi ito doon sa guidelines na nakapaloob sa Joint Circular 2015-01 and nag-serve as guideline for the Commission on Audit to audit the use of confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte. So nakita dito ng prosecution no na itong mga discrepancies na ito ay allegedly talaga nagpapatunay na may misuse of confidential funds itong si Vice President Sara Duterte pero for the side of the defense hindi lang naman daw kasi si Vice President Sara Duterte din ang gumagamit ng confidential funds. It happened in 2014 kaya former Vice President Jejomar Binay at sinasabi nga din dito mismo ng defense no na there has to be some sense of credibility for the side of the witness. Pero ang nasabi rin ng prosecution no, we will wait and see sa presentation naman ng next witness na si current state auditor naman ng COA na si Silene Del Campo para nga mas maisiwalat pa kung ano pa yung naging auditing process na ginawa mismo ng Commission on Audit pagdating dito sa confidential funds ni Vice President Sara Duterte. Ang nasabi na lang din last no ni Attorney Lorna Capunan for today because there will be interjections and questions from the senator judges. They are expecting that it will be heavy and long from the side of the judges of the impeachment court. Pero yun nga, ready pa rin naman daw no ang kanilang magiging presentation when it comes to the next witness who happens to continue and put out the puzzle, no, pick up more puzzle pieces para nga dito sa confidential funds si Vice President Sara Duterte.
Okay, maraming salamat sa update. Amy Atienza, our mobile journalist, in our continuing monitoring of the impeachment trial. And a quick check on the Philippine peso again and see how that's opened. It is stronger, 60.999 to the dollar. It strengthened to the 60 level. The peso slid back to the 61 per dollar level yesterday as traders tracked the performance of the Japanese yen and digested comments from President Trump giving an ultimatum to Iran for peace talks. Checking in on the markets overseas, U.S. stock futures rise in overnight trading. The Dow and the S&P 500 climbed 0.2%. The Nasdaq trading near the flat line. And Asian markets are in the positive this Wednesday, led by South Korea's Kospi up 4.7%, Japan's Nikkei 225 surges 3.25%, and Australia's ASX 200 advances 0.4%. U.S. markets closed at a record as crude prices fall and companies like Palantir and Caterpillar pull off strong quarterly earnings. The Dow rose 1.7%, hitting a record for the second straight session. S&P 500 jumped 1.8%, posting its first record high since June, and the Nasdaq advanced 2.6%. Philippine stocks fell Tuesday on the back of profit-taking activities. The benchmark PSEI shed 38 points, or 0.6% to close at 6,296. Certainties surrounding the Middle East continue to weigh on the investor sentiment. 4.54 billion pesos worth of shares changing hands, with losers beating winners 102 to 84. The broader all-shares index fell 0.4%, with the sectoral gauges mostly losing ground. 10-year government bond yields ticked down to 7.344%. And here are the corporate stories making headlines this Wednesday. West Zone water concessionaire Maynilad posted a 17% increase in second quarter net income to 4.52 billion pesos. For the first half of 2026, Maynilad's earnings rose 14% to 8.51 billion pesos. Maynilad is now bracing for the effects of El Nino the second half, but officials say the water concessionaire is more prepared this time compared to the 2019 crisis.
We will continue to diversify our sources to continue to reduce our dependency on Angat. We have a couple of desalination plants, as well as our fourth treatment plant in the south and various reservoirs. So yes, Maynilad is prepared for the El Nino.
Globe's core net income rose 7% in the second quarter to 5.3 billion pesos, but first half earnings slid 2% from a year ago to 10.2 billion. Globe's mobile prepared business remains the largest contributor, with core net income up 6% in the first half to 60.4 billion pesos. For its part, Mint, the parent company of GCash, has contributed to Globe 28% of net income before tax, underscoring its role as a key earnings driver. And Apple Pay is now available in the Philippines. MasterCard and Visa cardholders can now add their eligible cards to Apple Pay on their iPhone, Apple Watch, iPad, and Mac to make contactless payments. Currently, there are 4 participating banks: China Bank, Metro Bank, Union Bank, and GoTime. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, your side, all the time. Morning Matters returns at 9:30 a.m. Have a great day ahead.
Good morning mga kapatid. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News.
Day 12 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial centered on the use of confidential funds by the OVP and DepEd. Former COA Auditor Roderick Wamil tested that both offices submitted incomplete supporting documents and reported expenses that were not allowed under audit rules. Wamil said the OVP charged 82 million pesos in medical and food aid as well as 20 million pesos in travel incentives to its confidential funds. He also flagged DepEd's reward payments and other expenses that were allegedly unsupported by documents. Wamil identified Duterte's signature on documents certifying that the OVP expenses were lawful and incurred under her direct supervision. Prosecutor Lorna Capunan called the alleged fund misuse a scam, but the court ordered the remarks stricken from the record after the defense objected. The defense, however, stressed that COA's findings were not yet final and that no rule prohibited the OVP from spending its quarterly cash advance in just 11 days. The questioning of Wamil by the senator judges was deferred today, August 5.
Right, and to help us understand the legal weight of the testimony of former COA Auditor Roderick Wamil, we now speak with UP Law Professor Attorney Dan Gatmaytan. Good morning, Attorney. Welcome to the program.
Hello, good morning, Jessica, Pauline, and Angela, and to all your viewers.
Well, good morning to you too, Attorney. Okay, so let's break down what happened in yesterday's impeachment trial. How significant was Attorney Roderick Wamil's testimony, and how strong do you think is the case now of the prosecution?
Well, yesterday's testimony was a continuation of what happened before. And what the prosecution is trying to do is, as you said, establish that there were irregularities in the procedures and the activities that were against which the funds were charged. And it's significant because they are actually building their case.
Well, what the defense said, or as per defense, what the witness said is just preliminary findings. What is the effect on the witness's statement, and can the preliminary COA findings support an impeachment conviction?
Yes, she's being charged with betrayal of public trust. You know, and it is for the Senate to determine whether the acts which are being described in the testimony constitute such an offense. So the fact that it's not yet final, I think, is not really that material. What the prosecution is showing is that right now, the COA has made determinations that the actions of the Vice President were irregular.
Well, for the past couple of days, they've been sifting through documents, acknowledgement receipts, disbursement vouchers. But beyond the audit findings, what does the prosecution need to prove?
They're already doing it right now. What they are trying to show is that the funds have not been properly audited. And remember, our Article 1 is about the confidential fund. And that's what they have to show, that they were not properly audited. And that's why I don't think the defense made any damage when it conducted its cross-examination.
Well, one important thing, Attorney, that came up yesterday in the direct examination of Attorney Lorna Capunan was this supposed meeting between COA officials, including Attorney Wamil, and members of the OVP, Chief of Staff Attorney Zuleika Lopez, Attorney Michael Poa. How significant was that meeting to the case now of the prosecution, where they detailed how the officials of the OVP were asking for an audit query instead of an AOM? Does that show any irregularity already, or is that unusual already?
I'm guessing the prosecution will make that argument. I'm guessing they will say that the Office of the Vice President has made steps to make sure that they comply with the law. It's right now it's a little vague, so I'm not prepared to make that conclusion. But I'm just saying they probably will make that argument.
That there was an attempt. Or there was
Yes.
an attempt to sort of skirt the compliance requirements of the Commission on Audit.
Yes, or they're try to persuade the COA that they have in fact followed the rules.
Well, throughout the hearing yesterday, somehow Attorney Lorna Capunan has been citing the COA DBM Joint Circular 2015-1. And when the cross-examination began by the defense, Attorney Michael Powa invoked yung 1992 circular, no? And of course, we've seen what happened there. Sinabi po ni Attorney Lorna Capunan that 2015 supersedes related circular. On a legal standpoint, I don't believe, no, my personal opinion, that Attorney Powa doesn't know this. But on a legal standpoint, why do you think that he needed to present that?
The main point he was trying to make there was a whereas clause that provided that the nature of intelligence funds requires some kind of leeway, or the rules should not be so strictly applied. And I think he had to do that because that was the only document they could find that supported that argument. And it's a weak one for many reasons. For example, a whereas clause is really not part of the body of that that memo. You only look at it to help construe or understand the body of that memo. So we call it an intrinsic aid, something to look at to help guide you, but that's really not part of the law.
Na parang in the first hand, in the law, it was allowed that there are instances na it is impossible to provide official receipts or invoices during an intelligence operation.
And now we are all familiar with the 2015 memo, right? 15.1. And they're fairly strict about it now. I think it shows a change in policy. So Attorney Capunan was correct in pointing out that that 92 memo has been superseded.
Well, aside from the 1992 joint circular, another document that the defense presented was a 2014 document showing confidential funds for the Office of the Vice President under former Vice President Binay. How significant was this? Did this actually help the defense?
No, I don't think so. I think they had to point that out because the witness claimed that, or suggested, that no other vice president had confidential funds. And even if it's true that the other vice presidents did, it does not detract from the findings of the Mr. Mawil.
So, Attorney, just basing it on the cross-examination yesterday of the defense, how would you characterize the strength of their arguments and their case? Would you say, as early as now, it's weak?
You're talking about the defense?
Defense.
Yes, I agree with you. The fact that they had to find those documents, and if you listen to the cross-examination, what they were focusing on was compliance with the time to submit certain documents. They would ask, is it illegal to spend this amount of money in 11 days? But that's really not the point. They are distracting us from the point. The point is there were irregularities in the way they tried to comply with the COA requirements. So it doesn't really matter. Okay, they filed this document on time. It's not illegal to spend this money. But they have nothing else to go on it. They really have nothing else to go on. And that's as good as the cross-examination will get, at least for now.
Well, one thing Attorney Michael Powa asked during his cross-examination, Attorney, was meron bang nakasulat sa findings ng COA na may binulsa na kahit isang kusing ang Vice President? To which Attorney Lorna Capunan told the witness to not answer, di ba? Huwag ka sumagot. But I mean, what was the point of that question? Is that a strong argument for the defense? Does the prosecution also need to prove that the Vice President pocketed the confidential funds?
No, because she's not being accused of that. What they are arguing is that she did not follow the procedures and therefore the confidential funds were not accounted for. So it's never alleged that she took money. It's like how it was used. Later on, I think they will try to show that. And the objection of Attorney Kapunan was really on the ground that she was making an objection.
Well,
But she
do
didn't
you
want the witness to say anything because she was in the
Mm-mm.
middle of making an objection.
Right. Well, do you believe or do you agree with the prosecution has said yesterday through Congressman Terry Ridon that the burden of evidence now shifted to the defense because of the presumption existed already?
Okay, I'm a little uncomfortable with the manner they phrased that question. Uh, the prosecution has made its case. I'm just going to say that the defense, if it wants to succeed, has to counter the arguments. But that's their function, and then they will get their chance after the prosecution has laid out all their arguments in all four articles of impeachment.
So with that said, kailangan po patunayan ngayon no ng defense na wala pong binulsa, wala pong na-liquidate ng maayos. So kailangan po ba nilang patunayan na meron pong mga totoong tao behind those aliases?
It could help. Yes, I think they have to because right now it looks like the prosecution is trying to show that these are concocted names, part of their argument, right? And so the defense has to produce people who will actually say that they received the money, so that it settles the question of how or where the money went, but not the procedure of or not the question of compliance with the COA requirement.
Well, Attorney, there have been several timelines that have been discussed. The 11-day period where 125 million was spent, the 30 days for the Office of the Vice President to respond, which they complied with, and that it took 8 months for COA to issue their official findings. In the bigger picture, do these timelines matter, and which one matters the most?
I'm not sure. As I said earlier, that's the argument they're using, that they complied with certain procedural requirements. But again, it's a question of, if you listen to Attorney Mawin, he was talking about whether you can use this money for medicine or things that are not in the joint circular. I think those are the things that really matter. Because they may have complied with certain time periods, but it doesn't answer the question of, were the expenses allowable under the joint circular? That's more important.
Well, among the documents that the COA presented, Attorney, and tackled, of course, were the AOMs, the notice of suspension, and eventually the notice of disallowance. But when it comes to the notice of disallowance, Attorney Michael Poa questioned Attorney Wamil, and said, isn't that recommendatory only? I'm not sure if you're familiar with COA rules and what they actually mean, or what their evidentiary weight is. But tama po ba yun na recommendatory? It can just be treated as a simple recommendation, ang notice of disallowance?
I thought that Attorney Poe was trying to make the point that Attorney Mawil's findings are recommendatory. And he actually answered the question. He said, yes, it is. Which means, and he said, I think COA was the final say.
Well, I was wondering, Attorney, if there are still questions that you still want to be answered that would probably be asked by the senator judges later today with their interjections. Are there still blurry lines that you want them to clear up?
Specifically for Attorney Mawil, I think he succeeded in what he was trying to do and show the irregularity. But I can also hear the questions now coming from social media, which is, so where's the money?
Yeah.
But that might not be for today. I think the prosecution has to lay the foundation for that conversation soon.
Well, yesterday, the defense also got Attorney Wamil to testify that he did not receive any special training in how confidential operations are done, that they do not go out into the field to observe confidential operations, many other points. But was the defense successful in discrediting Attorney Wamil as a witness?
That's the importance of redirect examination, and Attorney Kapunan made the point that there's no such requirement or no such requirement to do the kind of work that Attorney Mamu was doing. And um, uh, he had a training as an accountant, I think, right? And that was what was required for the position he was in.
Well, attorney, yesterday, at the end of her direct examination, Attorney Lorna Kapunan ended it with some pretty strong words, right? She said kung siya ay tatanungin, hindi lang ito prima facie evidence, ito ay scam. Now, the defense moved to strike it off the records, but how strong of a statement was that from the prosecution?
I think it was improper. Sorry. I like I like Attorney Kapunan. But see, that's not testimony coming from the witnesses. It's her. It came from her, and it's more of a conclusion. It, in her mind, this is a scam, which is really, really improper at this point in time because we're not making final argument. We're presenting witnesses. So I think I think Attorney Bova was correct in moving that those remarks be stricken from the record.
But maybe that was her strategy, attorney, no? Just to put it out there. Even though she knew, I'm sure she knew that it would be stricken off the record because, as you mentioned, it was improper. But, in this impeachment court, you're also speaking to the public.
Yes, and it's not. It's a common trick, or a tactic of lawyers. Early in the trial, you notice that the defense lawyers will do the same thing. They would ask a question that was improper, like referring to the House hearings as a mini trial, for example. And then they'll say, well, it's asked and answered. And they know that's a cheap shot. Now, the remedy is the one that Attorney Poe asked for, and that it be stricken from the record. And some people are saying, well, what's the point if it's already out there, right? It's already out in the public. But when you decide a case and a matter has been stricken off the record, you are not allowed to consider that statement when you make your decision. And it's not impossible. That's what judges do.
Well, I think the goal there is not to no longer speak to the impeachment court only, but to the people, no, to shape public's opinion. But moving on to another question, attorney, do you think that this, watching the hearings about the liquidation of confidential funds, alleged misuse, don't you think it's also high time now that our laws be reviewed about confidential funds, as how it is being given to agencies? We all know confidential funds are for civilian agencies, and intelligence funds are for military operations. But there are some political accommodations na nangyayari because of pagbibigay ng mga confidential funds. So, do you think can be a precedent also, this case, na talagang ma-review natin yung pagbibigay ng mga confidential funds?
Yes, thank you for that. And now it's being practiced by many local government units as well. Some mayors are getting confidential funds. And I think this is an opportunity for us to ask whether it's even legal to give confidential funds. My personal view is that it's unconstitutional because it actually goes against the principle of transparency and accountability. And there's nothing in the Constitution that says that makes any reference to confidential funds. So if we're going to start reforming things, one, we can either make the rules tighter for the use of confidential funds, and number two, ask whether this should be given at all.
Yesterday, there was an auditor memo dated February 1, 2024, where they found there was no documentary evidence submitted by the DepEd on payments for confidential expenses. The accomplishment reports cited medical and food aid, which is not allowed in the list of expenses in the joint circular. Do you feel that with everything that's already been discussed with Attorney Wamil is enough, or do you see this article wrapping up sooner than expected, or do they need to continue pushing?
I don't know what else they have planned, but Right now, the point that Attorney Mawel is making is a very strong one. Again, the fact that they had to bring out those DepEd submissions show that these are not satisfactory. They do not meet the standards of the COA, and that's really the point that he's trying to make.
Well, today, Attorney, the senator judges will have their chance to interject and ask questions to the witness, right? But what are some of the questions do you think that these senator judges must clarify with Attorney Roderick Wamil?
Again, I'm tempted to make jokes about what the Cayetanos will say, but I think I should stop.
Oh, feel free to do so, Attorney.
Kasi based on their performance so far, they seem to be more concerned with discrediting or impeaching the witnesses, and that's weird because judges do not do that. But they can't seem to stop themselves, so they're going to try to point out more inconsistencies or instances in the past where he lied, whether there's a pending case, and that's what they've been doing so far. And well, I hope there's a lot less of that because the judges are supposed to be objective and not one-sided.
Okay.
Natawa na lang si Angela.
Anyway, Attorney, going back to the presentation of the evidence by the prosecution yesterday, we've seen a lot of budget allocations in the DepEd's confidential funds, no, more on the anti-extremism and terrorism program. And at some point, Attorney Lorna Capunan said also pointed out that why is it necessary to maintain peace and order within the department? No? What do you make of those? I mean, is it really necessary to have these kinds of program in Department of Education?
I think not. No, that's the thing. If it's intelligence work, then I think we have government agencies that can do the work, do the job. And additionally, if you recall yesterday, I think they were not able to show or file any document to show success in any of these programs, diba? What schools are covered, etc. And to be more specific, to answer your question, no, I don't think the DepEd should be doing that. Then otherwise, every agency is going to use that justification. We have NPA recruiting people. That's not their job.
Well, yes. Let alone in grade school, tama ba yun?
Yeah. Diba? And it's not clear how they supposedly accomplish these things.
Another thing that was brought up by the defense was Attorney Sheila Sison objected to the marking of the Las Cañas affidavit, which we heard about during NBI Director Matibag's testimony. Can we get your thoughts on this? Why do you think the defense does not want this to be marked? Why the prosecution wants this to be marked? And how this will affect the impeachment proceedings?
Okay. When the affidavit surfaced early in the trial, the NBI was trying to show that when they conducted their investigation, the document fell on the rat, or they sought it out, or basta they had it. And for purposes of investigating, it's okay because the objection there, it wasn't even notarized, etc. The formal requirement of our courts. But they were saying, no, we're just using this because it's a lead. And therefore, it helps us understand the potential for violence of the vice president, etc. Now, the defense might have a point because now they're going to admit it as evidence. And if it's not notarized, then it might not be admissible. So I want to see how the court is going to rule on this.
Well, Attorney, we also wanted to get your thoughts on the defense counsel because over the past few weeks, throughout this impeachment trial, we've been talking to different analysts, law experts, just like you, and we've been hearing different schools of thoughts. And yesterday, we talked to Attorney J.V. Bautista, and he said he doesn't think the Vice President is being well represented. He wants to see the defense become more aggressive in this trial. Do you share the same sentiment, or do you think that the case of the Vice President is very difficult to defend to begin with?
I think it's difficult to begin with, and I don't think we're allowed to assess the performance of lawyers uh, uh, because of our ethical code. So I'm not going to go there. I think I think I read somewhere that we're not supposed to malign them or make an assessment or anything.
But maybe you can zoom in more, attorney, on what you said, that the case is difficult to defend to begin with.
It's difficult. I think that's why they didn't want this trial to happen, because if you look at the articles of impeachment, it's really tough. Even Article 4 on grave threats, you know. I think they've already established the elements of grave threats, and here, you know, they're presenting documentary evidence that will be very difficult to unsee, right? Because it's recorded. So I don't know any other approach for the defense.
Well,
But
this
what
I
they're
want to.
doing right now,
Yes, attorney, this I want to ask you, and it's very interesting, or I want to see if you will tell us an honest opinion on this. Ano. Anyway, so why do you think that the office of the vice president or the vice president herself didn't comply with the guidelines of liquidation of COA? Hindi po tumalima sa guidelines ng COA. Do you think this is just an issue of lack of knowledge of the process, or somehow an entitlement na I am the VP, I am a Duterte, and no one can audit me?
I think it's both. I think because they're new to handling confidential funds, they probably didn't realize that there are existing rules. And when the rules were presented to them, they might have fallen back on that mentality that you were just describing. Because, you know, when I was watching the budget hearings for the office of the vice president, and the vice president was still attending, I think she couldn't understand why they don't just give her the money because she asked for the money. The cross-examination, the questions that were being asked really annoyed her. And I think there might be an element of that the idea that she can get away with anything she wants, probably factored in there.
But attorney, this is not foreign to her. She had confidential funds when she was a mayor in Davao.
Yes, but nobody checked her then.
Which leads to the other.
Probably is why she doesn't understand what the big deal is. You know?
Well, attorney, a lot of jokes have been made about the names that have been spoken about: Mary Grace Piatos, Mickey Mango, Cisfronio Balsac. But you know, with all these jokes, with all the stories on the sidelines, what do the public need to focus on? What should we not be distracted from?
The names are an indication that this matter was not taken seriously. No? That's what the prosecution is going to present. I think that these are concocted names because the money really did not go to any specific person. The defense is going to say, I think, that these are aliases. And I think that's how they're going to present certain people who will be claiming to be these the Piatoses. Okay, but the defense still has other problems, because I think the NBI will present experts showing you the signatures on these vouchers, on these documents, were made by only a few people. So the defense has to have an argument for that as well.
Well, attorney, you are a constitutional law professor. So based on everything we've heard and we've seen from the hearings, would you say that this article on the misuse of confidential funds would amount already to an impeachable offense, that the prosecution can secure a conviction of the vice president for this particular article?
I want to see a little more today, but they are making a very strong case, and I think they are on the right path.
All right. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights, UP Constitutional Law Professor, Attorney Dan Agatmaytan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Day 12 of Vice President Sara Duterte's impeachment trial is now underway. Let's watch this.
Bilang mga senator judges na may pagkakataong magtanong sa mga saksi upang linawin ng mga usaping mahalaga sa paglilitis, naway magsilbing gabay sa atin ang mga salita ng Diyos. Sa Proverbs chapter 24 verses 23 and 24, pinaalalahanan tayo sa bigat ng ating mga pasya. Hindi mabuti ang may kinikilingan sa paghatol. Ang magsabi sa may sala na walang kasalanan ay susumpain ng mga tao at kamumuhian ng mga bansa. Ganun din sa mga hahatol doon sa walang sala ng parusa. At sa Proverbs chapter 29 verse 4, pinapaalala sa atin ang bunga ng tunay na katarungan. Isang bagay na matagal nang minimithi ng ating bayan. Sa pamamagitan ng katarungan, ang isang pinuno ay nagbibigay ng katatagan sa kanyang bansa. Patnubayan niyo po kami, Panginoon, dito sa aming sagradong tungkulin. Amen.
Amen. The clerk of okay na tayo. The clerk of court will now call the roll.
Roll call of members. Senator Judge Aquino, Senator Judge Cayetano Alan, Senator Judge Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Judge Ejercito, Senator Judge Estrada, Senator Judge Go, Senator Judge Ontiveros, Senator Judge Lacson, Senator Judge Lapid, Senator Judge Legarda, Senator Judge Marcoleta, Senator Judge Marcos, Senator Judge Padilla, Senator Judge Pangilinan, Senator Judge Soto III, Senator Judge Tulfo Erwin, Senator Judge Tulfo Rafi, Senator Judge Villanueva, Senator Judge Villar Camille, Senator Judge Villar Mark, Senator Judge Zubiri, the presiding officer, Senator Judge Escudero, Senate President Gatchalian.
With 16 senator judges present, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. In accordance with the rules of procedure on impeachment trials, the chair now recognizes the duly elected presiding officer to preside over the proceedings of the impeachment court. To correct, we have 17 senator judges present.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. If there are no objections, we shall dispense with the reading of the Journal of the Senate sitting as an impeachment court dated August 4, 2026, and shall consider the same as approved. The clerk of court will please call the case before this impeachment court.
Case number 004-2026 in the matter of impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Zimmerman Duterte.
Appearances?
Same appearance for the prosecution, Your Honor.
For the respondent?
Same appearance for the respondent accused. Good morning, Your Honors.
Before the chair continues, the clerk of court, through the OSA, is directed to kindly situate the witness at the witness stand for the continuation of his testimony. Mr. Wamil. Mr. Wamil, I would like to remind you that you will be continuing with your testimony under the same oath that was administered to you the other day. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. When we adjourned the examination of the witness by the counsels for the parties were finished, and we will now proceed with the interjections of the senator judges this morning. And yesterday, we already indicated the sequence of the interjections and questions from the senator judges First to make his interjections will be Senator Rafi Tulfo. Sir, you are recognized. You have 2 minutes and you may proceed when you're ready.
Your Honor, may I be recognized first?
Yes, what is the pleasure of the Honorable Chua?
Your Honor, may we request the counsel for the prosecution, Attorney Kapunan, be recognized, Your Honor.
The counsel for the panel of prosecutors, Attorney Lorna Kapunan, the designated handling counsel for this witness, may situate herself also accordingly.
Thank you, Your Honor. Same appearance. Good morning.
Good morning, Attorney Lorna. Senator Tulfo, Rafi, you may proceed, sir, when you're ready. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Wag muna, Mr. Presiding Officer, point of order lamang muna to.
Yes, what is your point of order, Honorable Tulfo?
Kasi kahapon, nabanggit na si Attorney Pua, magaling na abogado siya, ay pumunta sa COA, tama, para makipag-usap tungkol dun sa sinasabing audit query. Now, hindi po pa conflict of interest yun para siya ay mag-represent dito ngayon sa natin, pinag-uusapang confidential funds when in fact, siya mismo pumunta doon sa COA office para makipag-usap sa kanila. What do you think, Mr. Presiding Officer?
The respondent in this case, Senator Judge Tulfo, is the Honorable Vice President, Sara Zimmerman Duterte. Attorney Poa, although he served under the office of the Vice President, I believe, and even under DepEd, is not a named respondent to this case. And in fact, is one of the lawyers, as you can see, of the respondent. There is I believe there is no conflict with respect to that, given that he is not the one in trial in this case.
Okay, I rest my case, Mr. Presiding Officer. Ngayon, pwede nang yung oras.
Yes.
Mr. Witness, bukod sa OVP at saka DepEd, we're talking about confidential funds, meron pa ba ibang ahensya ng pamahalaan na in-audit nyo ang kanilang confidential funds?
Based on the GAA po, meron may mga other agencies na may allotment for confidential fund.
Kaya nga, meron kayong mga na-audit.
Yes po, Your Honor.
At dito sa mga ahensyang na-audit ninyo, magkapareho bang utilization nila ng confidential funds sa OVP, DepEd under BP Sara and those agencies na in-audit nyo?
Yung utilization naman po ng confidential fund ay separate and distinct for every agency since yung kanilang utilization ay based on their mandate or operations.
Okay. Sila ba'y gumamit ng mga aliases, gumamit ng mga pangalan chichirya, etc.?
Yan
para
po
sa
ay
mga informants?
Yan po ay hindi ko na pwede. Ang alam ko po ay hindi ko po ma-determine based on the documents submitted since hindi naman po naka-indicate dun sa kanilang submission na yung mga pangalan na nandun ay aliases or not.
Okay. Noong April 2026, nag-issue kayo ng disallowance sa OVP and its officers para at the same time ipinasusoli nyo yung parte ng confidential funds.
Can you repeat your question po, Your Honor?
I think that was April of 2025. Nag-issue kayo ng, pinasusoli nyo ilang parte ng confidential funds ng OVP.
I do not have personal knowledge na po about yan since wala na po ako sa ICFAO noong February 12, 2023 po.
Okay. Anong reason ba't pinasusoli yung parte ng confidential funds na disallowed? What are the reasons?
Wala po akong personal knowledge about dyan since hindi naman po ako yung nag-issue ng disallowance. Since nung na-issue po yung disallowance ay na-transfer na po ako to other agency of the COA.
Okay. I think it was April 10, 2026. So wala na po kayo doon?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Sinabi kahapon ni Attorney Poa na binanggit niya ata yung COA circular ng 1992, if I'm not mistaken, na hindi dapat banggitin yung pangalan ng mga recipient dahil for reasons of security and national security. Security ng tao, ng recipients and national security. would it compromise sa tingin po ninyo yung security ng informant kung hihingan nyo sila ng resibo patungkol sa mga gamot na natanggap nila mula sa confidential funds?
Katulad nga po nung sinabi ko during my testimony, ang hinihingi po namin ay yung proof ng pagbili when it comes to the official receipt and the sales invoice po.
Correct. Alam ba, resibo, bumili ng maintenance or antibiotics, yung ganong klaseng resibo dapat iba ang hinihingi nyo.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Pero ang sinasabi nila, yun daw ay magdi-jeopardize ng magkakaroon ng problema sa national security.
Actually, yung minention po nila na circular, which is yung 1999 is already repealed na.
Repealed na.
Opo.
Pero just the same, sa tingin niyo ba yung pagbibili ng chichirya o dili kaya pagbili ng shampoo o suka sa sari-sari store, would that jeopardize the national security kapag yan ay binulgar sa inyo, binigyan ka ng sibo?
Hindi po.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Judge Rafi Tulfo. Next to make his interjections would be Senator Bam Aquino. You are recognized, sir. You may proceed when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Presiding Officer. Attorney, good morning.
Good morning po, Senator.
So, ang common understanding ho kasi ng confidential funds ay secret, pwedeng gamitin sa kung ano-ano, hindi pwedeng ibulgar sa publiko. Hindi po to totoo, no? Meron po talagang rules and regulations sa paggamit ng confidential funds.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Were you already part of the ICFAO in 2015?
Yes po, Your Honor.
So yung pinakitang memo nung 1992 at itong memo na pinag-usapan natin na circa 2015, parang magkaiba siya, no?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Do you know the reason why the rules changed with regard to the usage of confidential funds?
Since yung paggamit po ng confidential fund at intelligence fund ay kailangan ng strict accounting and auditing rules. So, nagkaroon po ng circular para ma-ensure na yung paggamit po ay properly accounted at hindi po magamit for personal use or misuse.
Yan yung laman ng memo. Pero ang tanong ko, do you know why it was changed? Kasi parang lumalabas magkaiba yung paggamit nito, if you look at the 1992 circular, iba sa 2015.
Doon po kasi sa yung circular ng 1999, walang differentiation as to the CIF po. Pero doon sa 2015-01 kasi doon na in-specify na dapat yung confidential fund ay gagamitin lang sa ganito for civilian government agencies. Yung intelligence fund ay gagamitin lang ng uniform and military personnel as well as yung mga intelligence practitioners.
Kumbaga, nilinaw nung 2015 circular yung paggamit at pag-liquidate.
Yes po, Your Honor.
And is there a new circular after 2015 or ito pa rin yung ginagamit ninyo?
Yan pa rin po yung ginagamit, Your Honor.
Okay. Second question. Anong pinagkaiba ng AR sa OR?
Ang OR po kasi, ini-issue po siya ng mga pinagbilhan na BIR registered. So, yung AR naman po, yun yung ginagamit ng agency para proof na binigay nila yung payment or payment dun sa tao na naka-receive noong payment.
And it seems na mas katanggap-tanggap sa inyo yung OR kesa AR. Is that correct?
Depende po yan, Your Honor. Kapag purchases po kasi, kailangan po talagang OR yung ibigay sa amin kasi doon po namin tinitignan kung kung nag-purchase po talaga sila.
Kasi official receipt, acknowledgement receipt, sabihin ng tao, pareho namang resibo, parehong receipt. Ano pinagkaiba niya?
Yung acknowledgement receipt po kasi, ina-acknowledge doon nung recipient ng payment na natanggap niya yung payment. Pero yung OR po kasi, parang yun yung proof na nag-purchase si agency doon sa pinagbilhan nung item.
Nung item. So pwede mong matrace. Kung OR, pwede niyong matrace.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Kung AR, pwede niyo po ba itong matrace o hindi na?
Pag AR po kasi, kung ano lang po talaga yun nandun sa face nung document, yun lang po yung basis namin since document-based po yung audit namin. Pag AR po kasi, makikita lang po doon kung saan binili.
Okay, yun lang yung information. Tsaka kung sinong tumanggap.
Opo, yung pinagbilan po.
Okay, dito naman sa tumatanggap, no, allowed ba yung code names? Allowed ba yung alias sa inyo?
Based on the provision of the joint circular, it is neither allowed nor prohibited po since silent po yung joint circular as to that.
Is that as of 2015 or even in previous liquidation of confidential funds?
Based on my recollection po, even yung dating circulars po, buhat nung nag-assume po ako sa ICFA, wala naman pong provision as to the use of aliases.
So bawal ang paggamit ng alias.
The circular is silent po.
Okay. Para sa inyo, kung alias, yung paggamit ng alias ay bawal, so hindi importante kung may ibang tao ito, totoong tao ba to, basta yung pangalan na binigay sa inyo, ang expectation nyo, totoong tao yan.
Based on that, kasi ang katulad nga po ng sinabi ko, document-based po kami. So wala po kaming way to determine if this is an alias or not po.
Oh, but in general, ang tinatanggap yung dokumento, dapat totoong tao.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay, next. Did you have any, napag-usapan nyo kahapon yung dealings nyo with OVP nung lumabas na or malapit nang lumabas yung AOM? Previous to that, meron ka bang dealings with OVP?
Wala na po, Your Honor.
So walang kumausap sa inyo, walang nagtanong kung paano to dapat i-liquidate, apart from the meeting which included Attorney Poa?
Wala na po akong maalala, Your Honor.
Okay. Last question lang, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Please wind up.
Yung notice, yung AOM, ibig sabihin yan, may chance pa kayong i-correct, di ba?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Pag notice of disallowance na, may chance pa ba yung i-correct o naniningil na?
Actually, the moment that we issue notice of disallowance, ni-require na po yung accountable officers to restitute po yung amount involved.
And to your knowledge, is there a notice of disallowance for the OVP and DepEd funds?
Wala po akong personal knowledge, pero nakita ko po sa news po, so I was made aware na may end na po yung OVP 2022.
So may notice of disallowance na ang OVP for the 500 million pesos?
For 125 million pesos po for the fourth quarter of 2022.
So sinisingil na yan kay Vice President Duterte?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Judge Aquino. Next to make his interjections is Senator Judge Pangilinan. You're recognized, sir. You may proceed when you're ready.
Thank
you have 2 minutes.
Mr. President, Mr. Presiding Officer. Magandang umaga, Mr. Witness, Ginoong Mawil.
Wamil po.
Wamil.
Magandang umaga po, Your Honor.
Yes. Nabanggit nyo sa inyong testimonya kahapon at nung isang araw na yung tinatawag na supporting documents, kasama dyan ay either sales invoice o official receipts. Tama?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Let me backtrack a bit. 10 years kang nasa ICFAO, tama?
Yes po, Your Honor. Almost 10 years po.
Okay. Without mentioning the agencies, ilang agencies na gobyerno ang na-audit mo tungkol sa confidential funds?
Marami na po. Pag sa NGAs po, parang nasa 30 plus na po yung na-audit ko. And sa LGUs, marami na rin po. Hindi ko na po mabilang kung ilang agencies na po yung
more
na-audit.
than 30?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Sa mga ahensya na ito, 30 ahensya, masasabi mo ba na nire-require din yung liquidation ng official receipts at ng sales invoice?
Yes po, Your Honor. Kasi yung requirement po ng circular ay ini-enforce po namin sa lahat ng agencies na ino-audit po namin.
So sa 2022, from December 21 to December 31, ilang sales invoice o kaya official receipt ang kasama dun sa mga liquidation report?
Wala pong sinabit sa amin, Your Honor.
Ni isa?
Acknowledgement receipts lang po yung sinabit sa amin.
849 acknowledgement receipts, tama?
Yes po, Your Honor.
So, ni isa dun sa mga ginastos, walang official receipt at walang sales invoice?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Sa karanasan mo sa 30 mga ahensya, masasabi mo ba na yung findings ninyo dito sa OVP ay similar o standard ba? O nangyayari rin yung ganong walang official receipt at walang sales invoice sa mga liquidation?
Yes po, Your Honor. Since sina-apply naman po namin uniformly yung provisions po ng Joint Circular 2015-01.
As in, puro AR ang sinasubmit ng ibang ahensya?
May mga agencies po na nagsasubmit naman ng OR po.
So, sa experience mo dun sa December 21 to 31, masasabi mo bang standard practice yan ng iba pang mga ahensyang iyong na-audit?
Hindi ko po siya masasabing standard practice since ito po yung kauna-unahang beses na puro AR po yung sinamit sa amin.
So first time sa iyong 10 years na puro AR lang at walang sales invoice at walang official receipt.
Opo, at ganun po kadaming ER kaagad yung sinabit.
At 125 million, no, na walang sales invoice at walang official receipt.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Doon naman sa usapin ng kung walang sales invoice at walang official receipt, masasabi mo ba na halimbawa yung sa medicines, talagang medicines ang ginasta?
Kung sinabit po sana sa amin yung official receipt po or sales invoice, masasabi po sana namin. Pero since AR lang po yung sinabit, hindi po namin masasabi based on that document alone.
Kasi sinasabi nilang, total naman, just to wrap up, gamot naman yan eh. Di ba? Mabuti nga, bumibili ng gamot. Masasabi mo ba dun sa liquidation report nila na yung 122 million worth of medicines, talagang medicines ang binili?
Hindi po, Your Honor.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Judge Pangilinan. Next, for his interjections will be Senator Judge Erwin Tulfo. You are recognized, sir. You may proceed when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Testigo, tama po ba ang pagkarinig ko na sinabi niyo kanina under sa COA DBM Joint Circular Number 2015-01, hindi naman kailangan ilagay ang tunay na mga pangalan ng mga intel agents or informers na tumanggap ng intel o confidential funds sa OVP tulad ni na Mary Grace Piatos, Chippy McDonald, Mickey Mouse at iba pa. Is this correct?
Ang sinabi ko po, Your Honor, ay silent po yung circular as to that matter po.
Silent. So po pwede. Kung when we say kasi silent, pwede.
Hindi po, Your Honor. It is neither allowed nor prohibited po.
So, if this is not allowed or prohibited, bakit nang i-audit po ninyo ang confidential intelligence fund po ng OVP, hindi ninyo hiningi ang tunay na mga pagkakilanlan ni na Piatos, McDonald, Mickey Mouse at iba pa?
Katulad nga po nung sinabi ko sa aking previous testimony, ang focus po ng audit namin ay compliance audit. So kung ano po yung provision ng circular, yun po yung ginagawa naming basis for our audit po.
Okay, compliance. When you say compliance, ito po ba periodic or random?
Yung compliance audit po kasi wala po siyang particular period kasi pag sinabing compliance audit, ina-evaluate po namin yung subject matter if it is compliant with certain applicable laws, rules, and regulations.
But I'm saying every agency na meron pong intel or confidential funds, do they have to undergo audit periodically or random lang? Dahil marami po tayong ahensya ng gobyerno na may mga intelligence confidential fund na hindi naman dapat.
Ang audit po namin ay based dun sa liquidation documents po na sinasubmit nila.
Pero is it periodic ba? Kailangan bawat agency na i-liquidate niya yung kanya i-audit ninyo yung kanyang paggastos ng intel or confidential fund?
Yes po, Your Honor. Yung kanilang kailangan...
So it's periodic, it's not random?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Kung kaduda-duda na po ang disbursement ng OVP, obvious naman, sabi niyo po, di po ba, yung mga medicines, mga pangalan ng tao, bakit hindi po ninyo pa sinampahan ang kaso sa ombudsman ng OVP?
Under our rules po, Your Honor, pwede lang namin siyang i-refer to the Office of the Ombudsman kapag nagkaroon ng final order at hindi po kinumply ni OVP yung order po.
Bakit? Nasaan na po ba yung order ngayon? Ano na po ang status? Itong mga findings nyo, 2023, 2024 pa ito, 2026 na po tayo ngayon.
Wala po akong personal knowledge about the status po since hindi na po ako connected sa ICFAO.
Okay, so dahil hindi ka na connected sa ICFAO, so wala ka ng pakialam kung ano na nangyari sa kaso na hinawakan mo.
Hindi naman po sa wala akong pakialam, pero yung mga ganyang bagay po kasi ay confidential na hindi naman ina-announce sa buong COA po.
Ayun. So, ibig sabihin, hindi mo na alam at hindi mo rin alam kung bakit hindi kinasuhan or ni-refer sa ombudsman itong issue na ito.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Senator Judge Erwin Tulfo. Next would be our distinguished Senate President, Senator Gatchalian. You are recognized, sir. You may proceed. When you're ready, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Mr. Witness, nakita ko dito, merong 6 na AOMs na in-issue And meron dito sa 6, non-submission of documentary evidence of payment. Ito ba ay na-fulfill ba ito after nag-issue kayo ng AOM?
Based on sa mga na-issue ko po, since ang na-issue ko lang po na AOMs ay for the fourth quarter of 2022, first to second quarter of 2022 of the OBP, and first to second quarter 2022 of the OBP. Ang naabutan ko po lang po na may response na may kasamang documentary evidence of payments ay yung fourth quarter of 2022 po ng OBP.
Fourth quarter of 2022. At ano, yun, diba kasi pag nag-issue kayo ng AOM, ang sagot normally is compliance, diba?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Yung compliant is fourth quarter of 2022 for this particular item in non-submission of DEP, documentary evidence of payment.
Yes po, Your Honor. Based on my personal knowledge po. Kasi yan lang po yung naabutan.
Ano yung kanilang submit para ma-fulfill itong non-submission of DEP?
Nag-submit po sila ng acknowledgement receipts po, Your
Ito
Honor.
yung mga acknowledgement receipt na pinakita ng counsel for the prosecution.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Nung sinabit sa inyo itong mga acknowledgement receipts, may mga pangalan nga nasabi ng ating mga senador. Vinalidate nyo ba kung itong mga pangalan na ito ay totoo o hindi?
Hindi po, Your Honor, kasi hindi po yan yung focus po ng audit namin.
So sa inyo, sige, go ahead.
Since what we do po is compliance audit. So ang naging focus po namin ay yung expenses po na based on the face of the acknowledgement receipts, as well as yung date kung kailan binayad, as well as yung amount po. Since binavalidate po namin siya based on the requirements of the Joint Circular 2015-01.
Binavalidate nyo ba kung yung pangalan ay totoong tao o hindi?
Hindi na po kasi hindi po yun yung focus ng audit po namin, Your Honor.
Nasabi mo rin kanina sa sagot mo na neither allowed or disallowed. Tama?
Neither allowed nor prohibited po.
Or prohibited ang paggamit ng alias.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Sa ibang mga agencies na enforcement agencies, ibang government agencies na gumagamit ng alias, pinapayagan ba o hindi?
Hindi naman po namin ma-determine based on the documents alone kung alias or not kasi wala naman po silang ina-attach na document na nagsasabing alias po yung nakalagay doon sa kanilang resibo.
Meron bang mga agencies na gumagamit ng alias?
Katulad po ng nasabi ko, Your Honor, hindi po namin ma-determine based on the document alone kung alias ba yun or not po.
Lalo na sa mga informant agencies, yung gumagamit ng intelligence funds, I would assume na may mga cases na gumagamit sila ng aliases dahil nga mga informants. Meron ka bang ganyan na experience na sinabi sa inyo ng agencies na hindi nila ma-reveal yung totoong pangalan? Dahil hindi naman prohibited, di ba?
Opo, wala pa naman po experience, Your Honor.
So lahat ng mga ARs na merong ganitong source of information, totoong pangalan ang sinasabit nila?
Hindi, katulad po ng nasabi ko, wala po kaming way to determine since nakabase lang po kami on the face of the document as submitted po.
Okay. Sa ibang mga agencies na nagsasubmit ng mga ganitong rewards, no? Nagbibigay ng information and rewards. Nakita ko dito merong rewards for medicine, rewards for various supplies. Ano siya, cash or medicine or in kind ang ibinibigay?
Based on those documents po, since nakalagay close and open parenthesis medicine, so medicine po yung binigay. And then yung isa po, payment of rewards, close and open parenthesis various goods. So various goods po yung binigay, Your Honor.
So ibig sabihin, may reward sila, hindi cash ang binigay, medicines at various supplies.
Based on the acknowledgement receipts po, yes po, Your Honor.
And that is allowed?
The joint circular naman po is, wala naman po siyang naka-specify kung paano nila babayaran yung rewards as long as yung requirements po nung circular ay fulfilled po.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Mr. Senate President. Next, for its rejections would be Senator Judge Joel Villanueva. You are recognized, sir. You may proceed when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witas, are you aware of ESI 100? It's International Standards of Supreme Audit Institutions.
I am aware po of ISAI pero yung specific po na 100 hindi ko po ma-recall, Your Honor.
Yeah, member po yung Pilipinas at they found on the word professional skepticism that requires an auditor to question records submitted, but also to fairly consider yung agency's explanations and contrary evidence. Is that correct?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Para lang maintindihan natin, actual nyo po bang sinuri ang mga transaction? Ibig sabihin, isa-isa po ba itong ini-examine lahat? Gumagamit ba kayo ng sampling, piling transaction, yung sinusuri? Gumagamit ba kayo ng materiality threshold sa pagpili at evaluation nito?
Hindi po, Your Honor. Lahat po ng documents ay ini-evaluate po namin.
So lahat, meaning gusto kong maintindihan, dinutugma nyo po ba yung bawat transaction from original receipts, accomplishment reports at iba pa?
Yes po, Your Honor.
And how do you, hindi ko maintindihan, when you're purchasing an information, paano kung bibigyan ng official receipt?
Your Honor, kapag, ang katulad nga po nung sinabi ko kanina, kailangan ng official receipts kapag binili po mismo from the supplier.
So ibig sabihin sa supplier lang, sa tao, hindi kailangan ng resibo?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Malinaw po yun.
Pag sinabi pong resibo, OR po, pero pag purchase of information, inaalaw po namin yung acknowledgement receipts po.
So you allow acknowledgement receipt dahil information yung binili, wala namang industriya na nagbibigay ng resibo for information that they're selling.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Sa madaling salita po, yung findings po ba ninyo ay batay lamang sa deficiencies in the documents submitted o nakukumpirma nyo rin po na sa pamamagitan po ng inyong independent verification?
Ang audit po kasi namin ay document-based. So kung ano po yung nilalaman ng documents vis-a-vis yung provisions ng joint circular, yun po yung nagiging basis for our findings po.
So hanggang dun lang sa dokumento na ibinigay, wala na po kayong ibang ginagawa to go out of your way and do your independent findings?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Ngayon po, Mr. Wamil, Attorney Wamil, para malinaw po sa atin, kayo po ba mismo ang nag-audit nitong bawat transaksyon at naghanda ng initial findings o mayroon po kayong team?
Ako lang po, Your Honor.
At kayo lang po ang nagre-review nito bago maging final report?
Hindi po. Meron po akong division chief. Siya po yung nag-review, Your Honor.
At dun po sa proseso yun, ano-ano ho yung material findings, recommendations, and conclusions na maaring idinadagdag o inaalis o binabago ng inyong ino-audit? At bakit po?
Actually, yung laman po nung na-issue ng AOM, kinumpare ko po yun sa aking draft at parehas naman po.
Sorry. Pakiulit po.
Yung in-issue po namin na AOM po kasi, kinumpare ko po yun sa aking draft at parehas naman po yung substance nung AOM.
Mr. Ramil, from AOM to notice of discrepancy, suspension, and then notice of disallowance.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Ano po yung mga nabago dun?
Kapag AOM po kasi, parang nire-require po namin, based on the joint circular.
Sir, ang question ko po, ano po yung nabago? Ibig sabihin from AOM, nabago po, di ba? Kasi binanggit nyo sa kanila, ito yung hinahanap namin.
Yes,
wala pa rin po. Nag-issue na ho kayo. Sa pangalawang stage, nag-issue na po kayo ng notice of suspension.
Yes, po,
Sa pangatlong stage, nag-issue na kayo ng notice of disallowance. Dun sa stages po na yon, marami po bang nagbago? Para ho kasing sinasabi natin dito, hindi pa rin po sila sumunod sa pangatlong pagkakataon, sa ikatlong stage.
Yes po, Your Honor. Actually, ang na-issue ko lang po ay hanggang notice of suspension, pero discuss ko na lang po din yung contents ng notice of suspension. Una po...
Sige po, from AOM to notice of suspension.
Ay, sige po.
Yes. I'm winding up, Mr. President. It's the same question that I'm asking because we don't want to talk about the notice of disallowance. From AOM to notice of suspension.
Okay po, Your Honor. Since nung nag-issue po kami ng AOM, wala pa silang documentary evidence of payments. So sinabit lang po nila yung documentary evidence of payments sa ICFAO upon receipt na nila nung kanilang AOM. And then dun po sa aming notice of suspension upon evaluation of their responses dun sa aming AOM, at kasama na rin po doon yung documentary evidence of payments. So doon na po namin nakita yung mga payment of rewards na cash, medicines, and in various goods. Tapos nakita din po namin yung mga purchases nila na walang official receipts or sales invoice na supporting document. And then yung mga date po ng payment ng kanilang acknowledgement receipts ay naka-date po ng December 2023 at yung iba po ay walang date. And then, Your Honor, may I be allowed po to refer to the NS for the...
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. This is very important because it shows that the agency were given chances, 3 stages para mag-submit ng hinihingi po ng ating COA.
Kindly wind up, Senator
Yes,
Judge
this is the last
Villanueva.
question, Mr. Presiding Officer. Thank you.
Yun po, Your Honor. Doon po sa NS po namin, nagkaroon din po kami ng findings na mas malaki yung amount nung kanilang expenditure based on the acknowledgement receipts compared to the accomplishment report ng 150.
Which was not present in the AOM.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Thank you. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Judge Villanueva. Senator Judge Rison Tiveros is recognized. You may proceed, ma'am, when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Salamat po, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Yeah.
Mr. Witness, para klaro po sa mga nanonood, kapag pinag-uusapan po yung confidential and intelligence funds, chinecheck pa rin po ng COA kung paano ginastos yung pera. Tama po ba?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay, so ibig sabihin, kahit confidential ang tawag sa confidential funds, kailangan busisiin pa rin yung pinagkagastosan. Tama po?
Yes po, Your Honor. Kasi public funds po siya.
Kasi public funds. Okay. Ngayon, yung mga resibo na hinihingi nyo sa COA, again, para sa mga nanonood, para saan ba talaga yung mga resibong iyan?
Kailangan po kasi naming malaman kung talagang bumili po sila nung kanilang mga binili, Your Honor.
Okay. Kailangan malaman nyo kung talagang binili
Yes po.
yung sinabing ibinili.
Opo. At
At
doon lang po namin makikita yun sa official receipt or sales invoice po.
okay, OR o kaya sales invoice. At hindi lamang sa mga AR.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Unless nga para dun sa pagbili o pagpabayad ng information.
Yes po, Your Honor.
So, importante talaga na makapagsumite ng mga dokumento at resibo ng mga di umanong pinagkagastosan.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. Sa kaso po ba ng OVP at ng DepEd, nakapagbigay po ba sila ng mga kompletong dokumento at resibo na hinihingi ng COA?
Ang tanging period lang po na, sa pagkakalam ko na mayroong documentary evidence of payments based on may stay sa ICFAO o yung fourth quarter of 2022. At based po dun sa kanilang documentary evidence of payments for that period, wala po silang sinamit na official receipt or sales invoice. Tanging mga acknowledgement receipts lang po.
Okay. So yung mga supporting documents na required, hindi ko po pwedeng tanungin kung kaagad nilang naibigay dahil hindi po naibigay yung ibang supporting documents.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Ni isa po within any time period after na dapat nilang sumitihin yan.
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. So, hindi ko rin kailangan tanungin kung kumpleto ba ang ibinigay dahil hindi ba kumpleto ang ibinigay nilang mga dokumento at resibo?
Pwedeng pa ulit po ng tanong.
Kumpleto ba o hindi kumpleto yung ibinigay nilang mga dokumento at resibo?
Hindi po kompleto, Your Honor.
Hindi kumpleto. Now, according to the joint circular, kailangan ng evidence of success for rewards payouts. So, itong tinatawag na evidence of success for rewards payments, naibigay po ba ito ng OVP?
Hindi po, Your Honor.
Naibigay po ba ito ng DepEd?
Katulad nga po ng sinabi ko, yung sa OBP lang po yung may DEPs na naabutan ko.
Alright. Pero hindi po naibigay ng OVP yung evidence of success for reward payments.
Opo. Pero i-clarify ko lang din po, since ako po yung nag-initially evaluate noong first and second quarter ng DepEd, based po dun sa aking mga na-evaluate na documents, wala din po silang sinubmit na documentary evidence of payment. Documentary evidence na of success of the surveillance activities or information gathering activities po.
Okay. At sa simpleng salita, bakit importante itong evidence of success sa rewards payments?
Diyan po kasi malalaman kung valid ba yung naging payment nila ng rewards po.
So kasi dito sa acknowledgement receipt, makikita natin marami-rami po ito, no? Nakalagay na kapag claim sila ng reward. So huling tanong ko sa inyo, Mr. Witness, sa round na ito, ibig sabihin sa itong evidence of success for rewards payments, patunay na meron tayong napala. Merong napala ang gobyerno sa mga operasyong iyan.
Yes po, Your Honor. Kaya po namin ni-require na i-submit po yun.
Alright. Salamat, Mr. Witness. Salamat po, Mr. Presiding
Thank you,
Officer.
Senator Judge Ontiveros. Before recognizing the Honorable Padilla, yes, Senator Lacson, after Senator Soto, I believe. Chair would like to inform the councils for the parties that you may take your seat unless a question is thrown at you by a Senator Judge so that you can relax. It goes for both parties.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your
Next to interpolate, Senator Judge Padilla. You may proceed when you're ready, sir. You have 2 minutes.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong tagapamahalang hukom. Meron lang po ako mga tanong. Maiksi lang po ito. Saan po kayo pinanganak?
Sa Nueva Ecija po, Your Honor.
Nueva Ecija. Opo. Saan po kayo nakatira ngayon?
Sa Manila po.
Manila. Saan po kayo nag-aral?
Central Luzon State University po, ng accountancy, and then
Saan
Arellano po, University ng Juris Doctor po.
Okay. Saan po kayo nakaikot na sa bansa natin? Nakaikot na po ba kayo ng Mindanao, sa Bicol?
Marami na po akong naikutan. Hindi ko na po maalala lahat, Your Honor.
Opo. Kayo po ba yung nakarating na sa BARM?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Opo. Saan po sa BARM? Sa Sulu? Sa Basilan? Maguindanao? Hindi niyo po matandaan?
Hindi ko
Mauubos
po
po yung oras ko.
matandaan, Your Honor, kung saan.
Bicol po. Nakaikot na po kayo sa Bicol?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Saan po sa Bicol? Sa Camarines Norte?
Sa Camarines Sur po.
Sur. Sa Norte, hindi pa po?
Hindi ko po maalala kung...
Nakaikot na po kayo sa mga bundok?
Saan po, Your Honor?
Mga bundok?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Nakita niyo na po ba ang pangangailangan ng mga tao sa malayong lugar? Katulad ng gamot? Katulad po ng pagkain?
Wala naman po akong na-observe, Your Honor.
Ayun, wala. Hindi po kayo exposed. Exposed po ba kayo sa threat ng terrorism sa bansa natin? Nabalitaan niyo po ba ang ISIS, ang NPA, ang Abu Sayyaf? Exposed po ba kayo doon sa mga balita?
Sa news po, may
Sa
mga
news.
nabalitaan po ako, Your Honor.
Opo. Alam niyo po ba na kung gaano nakagrabe ang terrorism?
Wala po akong threshold, Your Honor, to determine that.
Wala po. Pero kayo po ang humahawak ng investigasyon patungkol sa confidential fund. Tama po ba?
Hindi po siya investigation, evaluation po.
Evaluation. Nako, tama-tama. Ibig po sabihin, kahapon po, sinabi ninyo na gumawa lang kayo ng preliminary investigation. Tama po ba? Preliminary inquiry.
Hindi po. Part po siya ng process namin na mag-issue po kami ng AOM.
Opo. So, ibig po sabihin, kahapon kasi narinig ko parang yung ginawa nyo, preliminary lang.
Yung AOM po, preliminary lang.
Opo. Hindi po yun konklusyon.
Kung ang tinutukoy niyo po ay yung... Meron po kasing provision as to the joint circular as to tinatawag na prima facie.
Pakisagot na lang po kung conclusion ba po yun? Final?
Hindi po kasi we required
So, hindi
them.
po final.
Based
Boss,
on the AOM
konti lang po oras ko, hindi po final.
Sa AOM po, yung AOM po, hindi po final.
Hindi po final. Opo. Kayo po ba ay naniniwala na ang mga confidential agent dapat magpakilala? Sabihin ng kanilang mga totoong pangalan?
Wala pong provision as to that po sa joint circular, Your Honor.
Opo. Kayo po mismo, palagay niyo po, sa personal po ninyong pagkakaintindi, ang mga confidential agent dapat po bang magpakilala?
Since that calls for an opinion, hindi po ako authorized to express that, Your Honor.
Ano pong definition niya ng confidential?
Based on the joint circular po, ang confidential expenses ay yung...
Hindi po expenses, confidential lang po. Bilang kayo po ay abogado, ano pong pagkakaintindi niyo sa confidential?
Classified po, Your Honor.
Okay. Boss, sa next na lang po akong round.
Thank you, Senator
Salamat
Judge Padilla. You may avail of the second round. Next would be Senator Judge Marcos. You are recognized, ma'am. You may proceed when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Presiding Judge. Okay, kanina sinabi mo na hindi ka umabot doon sa notice of disallowance pero andun pa rin sa ICBAO nung na-release yung notice of suspension, di ba?
Yes po, Your Honor.
Okay. So, doon sa notice of suspension, katulad ng disallowance, na sabi mo, kahit wala ka na ron, you were made aware kasi nabalitaan mo, Pinagbawal ba ng COA yung mga confidential expenses dahil peke o fictitious, gawa-gawa lang yung mga AR?
Anong pong notice yung tinutukoy niyo po, Your Honor?
Doon sa mga AR ng OVP, meron bang sinabi na gawa-gawa lang, hindi tunay, peke?
Dahil hindi po yan yung focus ng audit namin, wala po kaming basis para magkaroon ng findings po doon sa mga sinasabi niyo.
So ang sagot, no. Walang sinasabi na fictitious yung AR. At doon sa AOM, pati sa suspension, gano'n na rin sa ND, sinabi ba ng COA na yung AR and documentary evidence of payments, yung DEP, peke, falsipikado, huwad?
Since hindi po yan yung focus ng audit po namin, wala po kaming findings about that, Your Honor.
Sinabi ba doon na falsipikado yung DEP at saka yung AR? Na it was forged, kumbaga?
Wala pong ganong findings, Your Honor.
Wala rin, di ba? At doon sa mga pangalan ng mga recipient ng award, tama ba ako sa pagkaintindi na hindi rin sinita ng COA yung mga kakaibang pangalan tulad ng Mary Grace Piatos, Andy Lim, etc. Ang sinabi at binanggit talaga ng COA ay yung mga datos na hindi tumutugma. Tama ba?
Since what we did is compliance audit po at wala namang provision yung circular as to the use of aliases, yes po, wala po kaming findings po.
Kasi sabi mo nga, neither allowed nor prohibited. Tama po. So, doon sa AOM at sa notice of suspension, the names of these reward recipients was never raised by COA. Di ba?
Yes po.
Tama. Dahil nangyayari talaga na kakaibang pangalan ang binibigay kapag confidential or intelligence fund. Kaya isa pang tanong ko, dun sa notice of suspension, pati na rin sa ND, ang pagkaintindi natin, final ba ito o hindi?
Kapag sinabi po kasing notice of disallowance under the joint circular, meron na pong obligation to restitute agad.
Tama, final siya sa COA. Pero kahit ang desisyon ng COA, pwedeng dalhin sa Supreme Court para maging pinal na pinal. Di po ba?
I-clarify ko lang po, kapag dumating na po kasi sa Supreme Court, ang tanging ground na lang po dyan ay grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction. So wala na pong kinalaman po yung factual matters.
Ganun nga, talaga naman na matters of fact, hindi naman rin na-raise sa Supreme Court, tama ka doon. Pero hindi pinal. Pwedeng dalhin sa Korte Suprema. At no point are these final.
I-clarify ko lang po, yung decision po ng COA to restitute ay hindi po apektado nung pag-file sa Supreme Court. So kahit mag-file po sila ng petition for certiorari sa Supreme Court, kailangan na po nilang ibalik kaagad. Kasi yung pendency po ng petition for certiorari, hindi po niya na-stay yung obligation to restitute.
Naintindihan natin yun, pero hindi pa tapos ang kaso. Pwede pang dalhin sa Korte Suprema, hindi po ba? At saka dun sa notice of suspension, balikan ko lang, was there a finding na ginamit sa pansarili yung mga confidential funds ng OVP?
That is a presumption po under joint circular.
Misappropriated ba yun?
Kindly wrap up.
That is a presumption po. Hindi po kailangan directly sabihin kasi nagkaroon po ng presumption.
Pero hindi sinabi. Sa madaling sabi,
Pero dahil
wala
presumption
talagang
po siya, hindi po siya kailangan sabihin, Your Honor.
Naintindihan ko, pero wala doon. Is there a COA finding na ninakaw ang confidential funds doon sa various AOMs and notice? Meron bang sinasabi doon na ninakaw? It was stolen?
There is a prima facie evidence na nagamit po siya for personal use or benefit under the joint circular.
Kaya nga.
Kindly wrap up, Senator Judge Marcos.
Yes,
You're gonna avail of round
I am
two.
done, but I have questions kung may second round.
There will be a round two, and I will register you, Senator Judge Marcos. Thank you. Senator Judge Ejercito is recognized. You may proceed, sir, and when you're ready, and you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Siguro dagdagan ko na lang din nun, ito tayo tinatanong na rin yung tungkol doon sa mga paggamit ng mga alias sa ating mga senator judges. No? Dahil alam naman natin na kinakailangan din na lehitimong may pangangailangan na protektahan. No? Dahil nga confidential itong mga information. Ang sa ilalim ng Joint Circular Number 2015-0, paano dapat maprotektahan ang pagkakakilanlan ng mga confidential informant?
Wala pong provision as to that, Your Honor. Kasi yung, wala po namang requirement yung circular as to the... pwede pa ulit po ng tanong, sorry.
Well, yung hindi kasi parang alam naman natin, no, dahil lalo na sa mga intelligence at saka yung mga activities, mga confi, ginagamit yung mga alias na nabanggit nyo rin kanina. Hindi ba pwedeng gamitin na lang, halimbawa, John Doe, Jane Doe, o Juan de la Cruz kasi alam naman natin na binambibilit, reward for information na siyempre pinoproteksyonan din natin yung mga pinoproteksyon ng mga agencies yung identity no ng mga informants.
Ang masasabi ko lang po, Your Honor, wala naman pong provision as to the joint circular sa use ng aliases kasi silent po yung joint circular.
So tanggap yun. Halimbawa, nakita niyong medyo parang yung mga pangalan mukhang alias lang, ay tinatanggap dahil pang-intelligence gathering.
We base lang po dun sa document submitted to us. So kung wala pong naka-indicate dun sa document submitted to us na alias po yun, hindi po namin malalaman, Your Honor.
Tapos meron ding dapat may coordination paggamit ng intelligence or confidential fund. May coordination with law enforcement agencies, tama po ba?
Yes po, based on the joint circular po, Your Honor.
So doon po, tanong ko lang po, meron po bang o may nakita po ba kayong naganap na coordination with the agencies, no? Of course, yung PNP, AFP, PDEA at iba pa, NBI na ginawa ang halimbawa OVP in this case sa kanilang paggamit ng confidential funds para sa sinasabi nilang confidential programs.
Based on the documents submitted po sa ICPA, wala po, Your Honor.
Dahil sinasabi ng joint circular, kung di ako nagkakamali, na kailangan may proper coordination ang paggamit ng confidential funds with these law enforcement agencies.
Yes po, based po on the joint circular, Your Honor.
Isa ba ito sa mga findings ng COA sa IOM o sa audit observation memo or notice suspension or notice of disallowance na inilabas laban sa OVP, yung walang coordination?
Wala po kaming naging findings about dyan, Your Honor.
Last, Mr. Presiding Officer, doon sa course ng yung audit, Mr. Attorney Wamil, no, did you see any evidence o may ebidensya ba kayo na si Vice President personally ang tumanggap, ang nakakuha o nagbenepisyo doon sa Confidential Intelligence Fund?
Based on the documents po, wala po, Your Honor. Wala po akong personal knowledge about that po.
So para sa record, for the record, just last point, Mr. Presiding Officer, sa pagkakaroon o kawalan ng ebidensyang nagpakita ng personal na pagtamanggap na kinabang ba ang isang opisyal ng pamahalaan sa pondong bayan ay sapat na? O upang matukoy kung may umiiral na pananagutang administratibo, sibil o kriminal?
Under the joint circular po kasi, since si OBP po, si head of the agency po yung may responsibility to oversee kung paano gamitin yung confidential fund and to ensure yung compliance nila dun sa joint circular, then the accountable person din po si head of the agency, Your Honor.
So last question, Mr. President. Upang maging malinaw ang inyong testimonya nang sabihin ninyong wala kayong nakitang ebidensya na ang pangalawang Pangulo mismo ang tumanggap, nagpanatili o nakinabang sa confidential intelligence, inilahad lamang ba ninyo ang inyong audit findings at hindi kayo nagbibigay ng legal na konklusyon hinggil sa pagkakaroon ng kawalan ng pananagutan? Is it based on your audit findings or legal conclusion hinggil sa pagkakaroon ng liability?
Based po sa audit findings, Your Honor. Kasi nilalagay po namin yung persons accountable dun sa aming ini-issue po.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Senator Judge JV. Before recognizing Senator Judge Soto, Attorney Wamil, just on the point of Senator Judge Marcos, to clarify, the decision of COA with respect to any appeal is final, is executory but not final even if it is appealed before the Supreme Court, correct?
With respect to the obligation to restitute po, kahit magkaroon ng pendency ng petition for...
Attorney Wamil, listen to the question, please.
Okay,
It is, unless a TRO is issued by the Supreme Court, it is executory but the decision is not yet final. Would that be correct?
Yung decision po, final na, Your Honor. Kasi
Inappeal nga sa Supreme Court, paano magiging final? Ikaw naman. A decision of the COA
executory na po, Your
appealed to
Honor.
the Supreme Court is executory unless a TRO is issued but is not yet final.
Yes po, Your Honor.
That is a correct statement.
Opo.
Thank you. Senator Judge Soto, you are recognized, sir. You may proceed when you're ready. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Presiding Officer, Mr. Witness. In your testimony, August 3, upon direct examination by the Prosecution Counsel, you were presented representative samples of selected forms. They questioned 845 acknowledged receipts, if I remember it right. Correct ba yun?
Yes po, Your Honor.
All right. Sinabi nyo na kayo ay gumawa ng observations doon sa mga acknowledgement receipts nito kung saan ilan dito ay pinagagamitan ng confidential funds ay hindi naaayon sa Joint Circular 2015-01